Chapter 126, Simulation Field Full of Variables. Du Jie was brought by Nan Yalong to a place called Cloud City. Of course, Liang Fei and Liang Le stayed behind. When they were assigned to Du Jie, they had already become Du Jie's personal belongings. In Cloud City, Du Jie experienced the top luxury that he had never felt in his 2 lifetimes. There was a magnificent casino. In the intoxicating entertainment venue, there were sweet-voiced singers, funny actors who could make you laugh, and various flavors of fine wine. There were hectares of orchards with all kinds of fresh fruits. There were horse racing tracks, arenas for beast fights, and racetracks. There were thrilling boxing matches and unrestricted fighting competitions. As Nan Yalong said, everything you can think of or can't think of can be experienced here. Cloud City has no restrictions on him. Compared to the small cafeteria in number 42 middle school, this place is like a pigsty. The celebration building that Yin Erfi and others often go to is just an ordinary restaurant. The people on the street had happy smiles on their faces, satisfied and content, as if the resource shortage caused by the elimination of 3 teams in the 4 alien star battlefields had nothing to do with this place. If Du Jie had crossed over to this place at the beginning, he would have long forgotten about struggling and fighting. Behind the high gates, there is the stench of wine and meat, and frozen bones on the road. The upper class enjoys a luxurious life, while the lower class struggles to survive. Once a resource crisis occurs, the rotational examination system is activated. The elites selected from the entire world serve them, in exchange for the opportunity to continue to survive. And the surviving elites continue to enjoy a luxurious life. Chi Yuan Star is beyond saving. After enjoying Cloud City for a few days, Du Jie came to this conclusion. Perhaps, at the beginning, Chi Yuan Star wanted to resist, but 200 years of hopeless enslavement is enough to change the essence of a civilization. What Nan Yalong called "we didn't do nothing in the past 200 years" is probably just a slogan left. Maybe one day, Pan-Universe Entertainment will really leave, but they will still maintain their current way of life. If they want civilization to regain vitality, there must be a major transformation or a complete change. Of course, the premise is to drive away the spaceship hovering over Chi Yuan Star. After seeing the truth of Chi Yuan Star, even though Liang Fei and Liang Le tried their best, Du Jie still insisted on using contraception. He didn't want his offspring to be buried with this declining civilization. Moreover, in essence, Liang Fei and Liang Le were tools sent by Chi Yuan Star to control him. Compared to Chi Yuan Star, the simulation field is more like a real world with flesh and blood. A month later, Nan Yalong came to pick up Du Jie. On the plane, Nan Yalong looked at Du Jie, his eyes full of admiration. "How was your month of fun?" "Pretty good." Du Jie smiled, poured himself a glass of water, and ignored Nan Yalong sitting across from him. Nan Yalong didn't mind either and smiled. "Du Jie, I have received more than a dozen geniuses like you. Some from the elite academy, some from the commoner academy. After experiencing the influence of Cloud City, some completely fell into decadence, some were resentful and dissatisfied, and some even cursed and complained about the injustice of this world. You are the most special one. You expressed your dissatisfaction with me simply by not pouring water for me. You are so calm. If I hadn't seen your resume, I wouldn't believe that you came from the commoner academy. You truly deserve the title of a genius who can even break the simulation field." Du Jie was stunned. Yes, Cloud City does indeed allow you to enjoy a different life, but it is also a test. Nan Yalong smiled and reached out his hand to Du Jie. "No matter how foolish we are, we would not build such a city that would give others ammunition to criticize. The warriors who enter the alien star battlefield must be the best of the best and will not lose themselves in any environment. Congratulations, you have passed the test again." Du Jie glanced at him and ignored him. Nan Yalong calmly retracted his hand, looked at Liang Fei and Liang Le behind Du Jie, and sighed, "I know you have a rebellious spirit in your heart. The reason we are afraid of the Commoner Academy is that one day, the people of Chi Yuan Star will get used to this kind of life and forget their hatred towards Pan-Universe Entertainment. Du Jie, you should actually leave behind your descendants. The alien star battlefield is really dangerous. I have my own plans." Du Jie said. He was already too lazy to distinguish whether what Nan Yalong said was true or false. What he wanted to do now was to find a way to escape from this world and live a normal life. "We respect your choice." Nan Yalong smiled and pushed the glass of water that Du Jie poured in front of him. "In the upcoming simulation field, you should focus on the keywords. After all, we will provide targeted training based on your understanding of the keywords and correct any bad habits you have in using them. As the saying goes, only when you have power can the truth of the world unfold before you, and you can freely reshape this world, just like Hwagayun. Okay. Du Ji nodded perfunctorily. I have some unfortunate news for you. Team Ding has been completely wiped out. Nan Yalong sighed and looked at Du Ji. If two teams cannot guarantee victory next year, at least 100 million people from Chi Yuan Star will die in the second half of the year. So, make good use of this simulation field. This is your last chance to train yourself. The elite simulation field will have opponents of the same level as you. You will gain more experience and spiritual power. Don't be eliminated at the beginning. The plane landed in a manor. This was just an ordinary manor, but it was still beautifully constructed, with water, trees, flowers, and pavilions. There were soldiers on duty outside. Nan Yalong told Du Ji that if he could come back alive from the alien star battlefield, this would be his home. If he could come back from the alien star battlefield 4 times, he would truly enter the power center of Chi Yuan Star and participate in national affairs. 2 days later, Du Ji lay in the simulation cabin, his own separate simulation cabin. This time, there was no assessment prompt. After the countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 ended. The feeling of weightlessness came, and Du Ji once again found himself in a transparent bubble, opening his eyes and overlooking the world below. Then, he was completely stunned. In his sight was a vast ocean. Apart from the occasional seabirds flying across the sky, there was nothing else to see. Around him were about a dozen transparent bubbles, presumably other elite contestants. Then, the bubbles began to drift randomly for 5 minutes. Du Ji stayed in his bubble, eagerly searching for land. But all he saw was the sea, and occasionally a few small islands, all deserted. At this moment, Du Ji finally understood the cruelty of the simulation field. Damn the dragon in the south! What does it mean that psychic power is not important? In a place where even a body to possess couldn't be found, without the protection of the shield for the soul, it wouldn't take long for the soul to dissipate and naturally be eliminated. In the previous simulation field, the initial elimination rate was 60%, a large part of which was probably because they couldn't find a body to possess. He couldn't possibly possess a seabird, could he? The 5 minutes passed in a hurry. The protective shield disappeared. Du Ji had no intention of stalking others anymore. In this sea where no one could be found, stalking others was a death wish. He looked around and aimed in one direction, turning into a streak of light, flying straight ahead. Fortunately, the speed of the soul was fast enough. 10 minutes later, Du Ji finally saw a pirate ship with a skull flag floating on the sea. There were no other ships around the pirate ship. The growth of keywords lies in influence, and more importantly, in people. A pirate ship obviously couldn't satisfy the rapid growth of keywords. Although Du Ji's soul could still hold on in this world for an hour, he didn't want to search for other targets on the vast sea. If he went in the wrong direction and was still on the sea an hour later, being eliminated would be truly embarrassing. Starting with 1 ship and a dozen people. Indeed, the simulation field was full of variables. If he wanted to find a chance to survive on the alien star battlefield, he had to force himself to adapt to various starting conditions. Chapter 127, I Fish I Am Happy. The pirate ship is called the Flying Bird, a 3-masted sailing ship. The helmsman is steering the ship, some crew members are adjusting the direction of the sails, and some crew members are drunk and sleeping on the deck. The captain and the first mate each hold an amber-colored bottle and drink together. Their side dish is a plate of colorless jerky. Due to long-term sailing on the sea, their skin is rough and dark, and their clothes are torn and dirty. The captain wears a black tricorn hat and carries a slender pirate cutlass on his waist. A flintlock pistol with an oak handle is casually thrown on a nearby wooden box. Not far behind them, the second mate is leaning against the mast, playing with a white parrot. From the structure of the sailing ship, their diet, and their weapons, Du Ji roughly deduced that the world background should not be modern. There are a total of 12 people on the ship, and the best target for body possession is undoubtedly the captain with the greatest power. Du Ji has his own judgment and will not possess an ordinary sailor who is just a menial worker on a ship with only a dozen people. But Du Ji's body possession does not have the memories of the host. Therefore, he decided to first understand the composition of the personnel on the ship in the state of the soul. At least he needed to know their names. Paul, are you really determined to find the so-called trident of the sea god? The first mate, with a full beard on his face, looks ageless. His face is full of flesh, and there is a huge scar on his left cheek, making him look particularly fierce. Of course, Barry. Becoming the Pirate King is my dream. The captain is relatively young, probably in his 20s, but his weathered face looks like he is in his 30s. He is slightly drunk and raises the bottle of rum in his hand towards the first mate. The Royal Navy doesn't even have a reward for me. This is a failure for a pirate. But with the trident of the sea god, I can dominate the entire ocean. The Watcher, the Phoenix, they will all submit to me. Paul, you will kill everyone. The first mate, Barry, took a sip of the wine, panting heavily. I disagree with your idea. Paul, the trident of the sea god is just an unattainable dream. I hope you can turn back. Barry, this is my ship, you don't have to do it. Captain Paul looked at his first mate contemptuously. You are already old, maybe you should find a town, get drunk in a tavern every day, and then sleep with a dirty prostitute for a night. This is more suitable for your life. The trident of the sea god? Is it a mythological background? Du Ji stayed by their side for a while, listening to the two drunks teasing and arguing with each other, then left their side and flew towards other crew members. When passing by the second mate, the white parrot suddenly fluffed up its feathers and flapped around in panic. Horn, ghost, powerful ghost. Wendy, stop talking nonsense. How could there be ghosts in broad daylight? The second mate, Horn, grabbed the parrot's body and stroked its ruffled feathers, sneering, let me tell you a common sense, sunlight will cause irreversible damage to ghosts. Those dirty things only come out at night. Ghost, right behind you. The parrot's eyes were fixed on Du Ji. If it weren't for Horn grabbing its wings, it would probably have stretched out its wings and pointed at Du Ji. Damn it! Can the parrot see me? Du Ji's face looked strange. He had been in 2 simulation fields before and had never been discovered before possessing someone. Although the other party was just a bird. He tried to reach out and pinch the parrot's neck. The parrot struggled violently again, desperately pecking at Horn's fingers with its beak. Horn felt pain and suddenly let go of the parrot. You damn stupid bird, just as hateful as that whore who cheated me. I will pluck all your feathers and throw you into the pot. Horn, help, the ghost wants to kill the bird. The parrot, freed from its restraints, fluttered back to the sail and continued to stare at Du Ji. Du Ji secretly smiled and chased after the parrot again, making a gesture of pinching the bird's beak, and then a gesture of breaking the bird's neck. As a soul, he couldn't speak at all, he could only rely on actions to intimidate a bird. The parrot stared at Du Ji, trembling, but tightly closed its mouth and dared not speak again. Wendy, come back. Horn called the parrot, but the parrot remained motionless, still looking at Du Ji, as if seeking his approval. Du Ji nodded. The parrot felt relieved, flapped its wings and flew back, standing on Horn's shoulder, burying its head under its wings. Du Ji no longer paid attention to the parrot, flew around the ship in a circle, and obtained the names of 2 more crew members. The helmsman is called Pierrot, and the chef is called William. It is difficult to know the names of the other crew members, but knowing these few people at the beginning is enough. After flying around the ship in a circle and confirming that the captain is indeed his best target for body possession, Du Ji no longer hesitated and directly crashed into his body. The captain's soul strength wasn't much higher than Chi Fihu's. Last time, with a spirit power of 160, he could still feel some resistance. This time, with a spirit power of over 1,000, even if Paul was awake, Du Ji found it exceptionally easy to enter. It was as smooth as merging into his own body. His personal interface was still open, and Du Ji quickly scanned all the information. Name, Du Ji. ID, 48699527. Spirit power, 1100. Current ranking, 980/1130. Keywords for the round, joy. Keywords for the round, loafing. Advanced skills, none. Derived items, none. Joy? Loafing? What the hell? It's even more absurd than the previous keywords of trade and kindness. At least trade could involve transactions, but what the hell is joy? Could his private happiness affect the world's situation? At this moment, Du Ji finally understood the despair of those contestants who were assigned keywords like kindness and hindrance. No, hindrance still had some play, but this joy, he really couldn't find where the growth point was. And then there was loafing. What good would it do, no matter how well he loafed? He, a dignified pirate captain, should strive for progress. What does it mean to loaf all the time? Wait. The explanation of loafing flashed through Du Ji's mind. Loafing refers to catching fish in the water, also means fishing in troubled waters, which means taking advantage of the chaos to gain benefits. Slacking off at work is a later interpretation. Fishing in troubled waters? That's his strong suit. Du Ji's eyes lit up again. Indeed. Having two keywords is beneficial, as you can always find one that's useful. I loaf, therefore I am happy. From now on, I will be a sunny and happy super pirate. But just as he figured out the meanings of the two keywords, suddenly, a wave of colic came from his abdomen. He subconsciously covered his stomach. Then, another wave of severe pain came, and a curved knife pierced his chest. Du Ji looked at his first mate who had ambushed him. You. Paul, I gave you a chance to repent, but you persisted in your wrong ways. You're no longer fit to be a captain. Rest in peace. From now on, I am the captain of the Flying Bird. The first mate, Barry, pulled back his curved knife with a grim smile. Don't blame me, this is the decision of all the crew. The ship slowly glided on the sea. The helmsman had already let go of the helm, pulled out his curved knife, and looked at Du Ji with a gloomy face. Over there. The second mate, Horn, who was playing with a bird by the mast, also came over. He shook his head and looked at Du Ji with pity. Captain, we just want money. No one wants to go looking for that damn trident of the sea god. The parrot on his shoulder, flapping its wings happily, as if it had been reborn. The ghost is dead, the ghost is dead, the bird is fine, the bird is fine. Chapter 128, Amnesiac Captain. What's going on? If you wanted to kill and take over the ship, you should have said so earlier. If you had told me earlier, I would have taken over your body. Shall we have some fun together? You had to wait until I took over his body before you made your move. This is not fair. Body possession carries risks, choose carefully. Barry, Wayne, you guys did a great job. You planned this so meticulously without me knowing, and almost succeeded. Is this the surprise you gave me? This perfect plan is so beautiful. With talents like you on board the giant bird, I, as the captain, am truly delighted. Du Ji endured the intense pain and a sincere smile appeared on his face. If I really die at your hands, I should go to hell with a smile. Is the captain confused? He has been betrayed by us. He's dying. What is he talking about? Does he think this will make us feel guilty? What a foolish guy. The first mate, the second mate, and all the crew members involved in the rebellion were all confused at this moment, to the point that no one stepped forward to finish him off. Of course, no one cared about this matter either. With a stab to the chest and abdomen, such a serious injury, no one could possibly survive. But soon, they realized something was wrong. When a normal person is stabbed, they become weaker as they lose blood. However, their captain's voice became stronger and the flow of blood seemed to gradually stop. At the same time, the personal interface in front of Du Ji's eyes flickered, displaying a new skill. Extending a hand to make someone happy, there is a certain chance that your smile will infect the other person and make their mood joyful. Is this skill an auxiliary for the happiness keyword to grow? Why doesn't it have a 100% chance of infecting the other person? What is the probability? It could be 1%, or it could be 100%. Du Ji doesn't like uncertain things. This skill is not even as good as the sad soldier's advanced skill with the sadness keyword. A keyword can give birth to a maximum of 2 advanced skills. It seems that one has already been wasted. Sea monster, damn it, you madman, you must have made a deal with the sea monster Selma. Barry's face suddenly changed, and he pointed his knife at Du Ji in horror. Kill him quickly. Those who make deals with the sea monster will eventually become unreasonable monsters. He won't let us go. After speaking, Barry swung his knife towards Du Ji. Du Ji dodged Barry's swing, pulled out his own knife, and defended against Barry's attack. The happiness from earlier only healed his injuries, and his attributes didn't improve much. However, the martial arts techniques and techniques practiced in the Wuxia world simulation field were still in Du Ji's memory, combined with Paul's original physical qualities. He easily dealt with Barry's attacks, and even had time to ponder what kind of creature the sea monster was. Following the usual tradition of Western mythology, Du Ji boldly made a guess. He parried Barry's attack with a swing of his knife and took 2 steps back, jumping onto a wooden box on the deck. He proudly raised his curved knife and smiled, "That's right, Barry, I did make a deal with Selma. This is also the surprise I gave you. I exchanged immortality from her with my unused memories. You traitors, no one can kill me. Once I get rid of you and find the trident of the sea god, I will be the future pirate king." Suddenly, he frowned and exaggeratedly covered his head. "Damn it, what else did I trade?" Suddenly, Du Ji's expression changed, and he looked at Barry and the others in confusion. "Who are you? Why are you on my ship?" "I am Paul, the captain of the giant bird. Besides this, I can't remember anything else." Barry and the others looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Du Ji's words revealed a lot of important information, such as immortality, and the fact that his severe injuries suddenly healed proved that immortality should be real. Can they really kill someone who is immortal? But Paul, who possesses immortality, has the ability to kill everyone. He has no reason to stop at this moment. Perhaps, this is their chance to survive. Wayne and the others looked at Barry with questioning eyes. Barry hesitated for a moment, put away his knife, and nervously asked, "Paul, don't scare me. I am your first mate Barry. Barry Sullivan, don't you remember me? Don't joke with us like this, it's not funny at all." "Barry Sullivan, I seem to have some impression." Du Ji's eyes flashed with caution as he looked at the knife in his hand. Suddenly, he realized, "Yes, I remember now. You are my first mate, Barry Sullivan." As soon as these words came out, everyone breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. "Captain, you really lost your memory." Barry frowned, "I was just joking with you. I am Barry Sullivan, not Barry Bray. What happened? How could someone lose their memory like this? Damn it, you really have bad intentions. Why is there so much blood on my body? Who knows if you guys want to kill me and take my ship? Don't try to deceive me." Du Ji raised the curved knife in his hand vigilantly. Wayne and the others tightened their grip on their weapons. "No, this blood isn't mine, I don't have any wounds on my body." Du Ji rubbed his body, frowning in distress, "Damn it, what the hell happened? Are you really my crew? Your injuries healed themselves, of course there wouldn't be any wounds left." The crew's tension eased once again. Barry sheathed his curved blade, whispering, "Paul, we are indeed your crew. A sea monster suddenly rushed onto the deck just now, and the blood on you splashed on during our fight with it. Come down, let's figure out what happened together." Vern and the others also put away their weapons. No one wanted to fight with a man who had an immortal body. The deal with the sea monster was irreversible, Paul's lost memory could not return. A captain with an immortal body and no memory was obviously beneficial to everyone. As long as he didn't seek that damned trident of the sea god, he could forever be the captain of the flying giant bird. Du Ji was still wary, he jumped down from the box, scrutinizing the people in front of him. Suddenly, Du Ji laughed, "That's right, we are indeed on the same ship. Barry, you and I have the same smell of alcohol." He pointed to the bottle of wine on the deck, giving himself an out, "I wouldn't drink with a stranger." "That's right, there are no enemies here, and you couldn't have sailed the ship here alone." Barry laughed along, looking at Du Ji who had sheathed his curved blade, his guard dropped a bit. "Paul, don't you remember us at all?" "I don't remember anything." Du Ji shook his head in distress, looking at the crowd in confusion. "I only remember that my name is Paul, I even forgot how to sail the ship." "Barry, what happened? Maybe you drank too much rum and accidentally hit your head while fighting the sea monster." Barry said, "Maybe we should dock and find a doctor to see if he can help you recover your memory." "Sea monster?" Du Ji asked. "Yeah, a humanoid sea monster with octopus tentacles all over its face, probably attracted by the smell of our alcohol. None of us could beat it, and it jumped back into the sea." Barry made up a reason on the spot. "Paul, the sea monster is not important, you are." Vern diverted the topic, "I've heard of this condition, it seems to be called amnesia." "Who are you?" Du Ji looked at him, asking. "Vern Price, the second mate of the giant bird." Vern smiled, pointing to the parrot on his shoulder. "Wendy, its name, Wendy, say hello to the captain." "Hello, Wendy." Du Ji smiled and greeted the parrot. "Hello, Captain." The parrot looked at Du Ji in terror, its voice trembling. The only thought in its mind was that the captain was dead, and the ghost was alive, but it couldn't reveal this secret, otherwise, the ghost would definitely kill it. You're a cute little thing, but I don't have time to play with you right now. Du Ji smiled in distress, pointing to his head, I need to recover my memory, I hope you can help me too. But first, I should check the ship's log to confirm whether this ship is mine. With that, he left the crowd, intending to walk away. But after 2 steps, he stopped. Who can tell me where the captain's cabin is? Barry signaled the helmsman, Pierrot, go help our poor captain. The helmsman understood and followed Du Ji's steps, walking and saying, Captain, let me show you the way. Honestly, I've never seen anyone forget their own room. Is it funny? Du Ji asked. Not funny. Pierrot said. It's okay, laugh if you want to. I don't mind. Du Ji pointed to his head and laughed, now the only voice in my mind is life is short, enjoy it while you can. So, Pierrot, there's no need to suppress your emotions. Barry, did Paul really lose his memory? After they left, Vern stood next to Barry, lowering his voice to ask. I don't know, but I do know that the sea monster Selma never makes a losing deal. If she says she'll take away memories, she'll definitely take them away. Barry's expression relaxed a lot. Paul didn't have an immortal body before. Will he notice our assassination attempt? Vern asked worriedly. He might be suspicious, but he has no evidence. After all, he has no injuries, right? Barry shrugged and laughed, the immortal body perfectly covered up the evidence for us, this is our luck. I'm not sure I can kill an immortal, and he has no reason to let us go. Paul is dead, the ghost is alive. Unable to bear seeing its master being deceived, the parrot finally blurted out what was on its mind. This stupid bird. Vern sneered, glanced at the parrot, and suddenly froze. Barry, does Paul losing his memory mean that the old him is dead, and the one alive now is a completely new him? Possibly, I'll try to test him later. A person pretending to have amnesia will always give themselves away. Barry said, if he's really pretending, we can just run away after we dock. Vern, while Pierrot is distracting the captain, you go and remind the rest of the crew not to let anything slip. Chapter 129, the main line is a conspiracy. The things recorded in the logbook are very simple. It records where the giant bird docked, what supplies were purchased, which route was taken, what weather was encountered, which company's merchant ship was robbed on which route, and so on. Without comparing it with the nautical chart, Du Ji has no idea what locations those routes correspond to. He pays more attention to the major events that Paul recorded happening around the world, which helps him understand this world better. For example, the ghost ship suddenly appeared on a certain route in a certain year and month, and encountered a certain merchant convoy. None of the sailors on the merchant ship survived, and they all disappeared. The king of the East Sea, Mahamazu, defeated the Royal Navy once again and killed Rear Admiral Kik. The reward amount has increased to 200,000 gold coins. The king of the North Sea, Loyal Lang Swan, discovered the artifact, the ocean horn, on the wreckage of an ancient pirate ship. It is said that after blowing the horn, it can summon ancient sea monsters sleeping at the bottom of the sea to help in battle. And the latest information. The daughter of the sea god, Jean Sini, issued a reward to find the sea god's scepter. She promised that whoever finds the sea god's scepter will receive the artifact, ocean feather, and the opportunity for eternal life. The purpose of the giant bird this time is to go to Hid Island to find the witch Hiei. It is said that she can divine the specific location of the sea god's scepter. It seems that finding the sea god's scepter should be the main storyline of this simulation field. Du Ji thought to himself. The 4 pirate kings, the witch, the daughter of the sea god, and Selma, the ocean horn. There are so many strange things in the world now, and the difficulty is obviously much higher than the previous 2 simulation fields. Unfortunately, he randomly obtained 2 trash keywords, one being happiness and the other being slacking off. It seems that it won't be easy to compete with other players. Nan Yalong told him that regardless of whether he enters the top 10 of the rankings or not, he will be sent to the alien star battlefield. But Du Ji doesn't plan to slack off in this simulation field. He may randomly encounter bad keywords in the alien star battlefield. If he wants to grow, he must force himself to adapt to the potential of developing any keyword. Only in this way can he become stronger and achieve his goals. Seeing Du Ji's gaze constantly lingering on the page about finding the sea god's scepter, Pierrot had a bad premonition in his heart. It was because of Paul's insistence on finding the sea god's scepter that it caused their collective betrayal. If the amnesiac Paul still wants to find the sea god's scepter, does that mean they will betray again? This time, Paul has the ability to be immortal, so it won't be so easy to kill him. So, you guys are really my crew. Du Ji closed the logbook and looked at Pierrot with a bitter smile. Pierrot, unfortunately, the logbook didn't help me regain my memory. It's okay, we can take it slowly. Pierrot comforted with a smile. Pierrot, why doesn't Jean-Sini go find the sea god's scepter herself? Du Ji asked. She is the daughter of the sea god, so it should be easier for her to find her dad's scepter. Why bother with a reward? As soon as these words came out, Pierrot knew that Du Ji had really lost his memory. No one would ask such a stupid question except for someone with amnesia. Jean-Sini has been sealed by the sea god. Only the sea god's scepter can help her lift the seal. Pierrot said. So, to get the sea god's scepter, you have to defeat the sea god. Du Ji asked. No one can defeat the sea god. Pierrot looked at Du Ji as if he was looking at an idiot. Moreover, the sea god has already fallen. Before he died, he sealed all his divine power into the sea god's scepter. Only by obtaining the sea god's scepter can Jean-Sini inherit the power of the sea god, break through the seal, and become the new sea god. Does the sea god only have one daughter? Du Ji asked. Yes. Pierrot said. Then why didn't he just give the scepter to Jean-Sini before he died? Why seal his divine power into the sea god's scepter? Du Ji said, isn't that pointless? Is he crazy? Pierrot choked, shrugged, and said, who knows? It's also possible that he doesn't like his own daughter, or maybe this is his test for Jean-Sini. We are all mortals, how could we possibly know what happened between the gods? Since the sea god's divine power is sealed in the sea god's scepter, doesn't that mean that anyone who obtains the scepter can become the new sea god? Du Ji's eyes lit up. Why bother giving it to Jean-Sini and exchanging it for the ocean feather? Mortals cannot control divine power, and they cannot use the scepter even if they obtain it. Pierrot confirmed that Du Ji had lost his memory 100%. The questions he asked were becoming more and more foolish. If mortals forcibly use the sea god's scepter, their life force will be drained and they will die. I see. Du Ji nodded thoughtfully. After a moment, he looked at Pierrot and said, Pierrot, I think the sea god's scepter is a conspiracy. Pierrot was stunned. Paul has been asking about the sea god's scepter all along, and he was increasingly worried that Paul would have the desire to search for the scepter again. Unexpectedly, in the end, he heard such an answer from Du Ji's mouth. Jenny promised to reward the feather of the sea if her scepter is retrieved. Du Ji laughed. Let's not talk about the importance of this feather of the sea. But even her father has fallen, proving that gods can die too. How can she promise immortality? This must be a conspiracy. Oh, my captain! Who would have thought that you've become smarter after losing your memory? You even spotted the loophole in the reward. But the immortality of mortals and gods should not be the same concept, right? Facing an ignorant Paul, Pierrot swallowed his worries. He nodded affirmatively. Yes, it's indeed a conspiracy. I've said it before, we shouldn't go looking for the sea god's scepter. A single reward has stirred up all the pirates in the sea. These people are idiots, one after another. I bet they will all be swallowed by this huge whirlpool. Pierrot, is our purpose of this trip to find the witch? Du Ji asked. Yes, Pierrot replied, Paul, since you already know that the sea god's scepter is a conspiracy, we don't need to go. You've lost your memory, perhaps, we should find a doctor first. Is there a better doctor than the witch? Du Ji laughed, if even she can't cure my amnesia, then no other doctor in the world can. Pierrot was stunned, not knowing whether Paul was pretending or not. He now suspected that Paul was using a roundabout way to trick them into continuing to search for the sea god's scepter. Why are you looking at me like that? Am I wrong? Du Ji smiled. Pierrot, don't worry that I will do something stupid like looking for the sea god's scepter. Remember what I said before? Life is short, enjoy it while you can. Now, I think happiness is more important. We go to Hid Island, 1. To find the witch, see if she can solve my amnesia, 2. We can also see how many fools are looking for the so-called sea god's scepter. What's more enjoyable than watching a bunch of people doing stupid things? Maybe, we can even profit from their foolishness. All right, I'll go discuss with Barry and convey your opinion to everyone. Pierrot looked at Du Ji again, left the captain's room with a lot of doubts. To be honest, he found it hard to understand Du Ji after his memory loss, even his personality seemed to have changed. After Pierrot left, Du Ji also left the captain's room and headed to the kitchen. He couldn't operate such a large ship alone, so he had to keep the people on board. And his attribute enhancement also needed cooperation from others. So, amnesia became a good excuse to ease the relationship with everyone. Without Paul's memory, he didn't even need to pretend deliberately. Even if his personality changed, he could blame it on the sea monster Selma. But he still needed to approach the main storyline. After all, there were too few people on the ship, which was not conducive to his performance. He had been happily fooling everyone on the ship with the excuse of amnesia, and his attributes had been slowly increasing. But the speed of increase was too slow. Now, Du Ji had to quickly enhance his strength. He needed a strong force to stabilize the situation on the ship. Back then, Feng Zhong's manipulation could create an advanced skill by tweaking the ears. He could definitely do the same through physical means. Even if he couldn't create an advanced skill, it would be nice to increase some attributes. Thanks to the Alliance leader, a history untold for the reward. I was planning to use the afternoon to organize the subsequent plot. Now, I decided to try to update one more time for you. If I can't finish it today, I'll add it tomorrow. It will definitely be there. Chapter 130, Master of Touching Fish. In the kitchen, there was everything, including dried salted fish and live fish kept in a wooden barrel that had been caught from the sea. The chef, William, was a fat man with a big belly. He already knew about the captain's amnesia. At this moment, he was rubbing salt on a freshly gutted fish. When he saw Du Ji enter, he instinctively grabbed the nearby meat cleaver and asked, "Paul, have you regained your memory?" "Not yet, William." Du Ji glanced at the hand reaching for the meat cleaver, smiled, and shook his head. The chef's acting skills were clearly not as good as the first and second mates outside. Du Ji could clearly sense the tension in the chef. He awakened the skill of not hitting a smiling face with his hand, so he smiled to ease the tension. In the previous simulation field, awakening the trading skill directly led to the collapse of the simulation field. He felt that not hitting a smiling face with his hand might have other uses, definitely more than just making the other person feel happy. Of course, even if he didn't, spreading happiness would still increase his attributes. Sure enough, when Du Ji smiled, William's nervousness disappeared instantly. He unconsciously smiled as well, as if he had returned to the time before the assassination attempt. He skillfully grabbed a piece of beef jerky from the nearby wooden barrel, put it on a plate, and handed it over. "Poor Paul, have some of your favorite beef jerky. Maybe good food can help you regain your memory. You still have fish blood on your hands. You didn't even wipe it off and grab the beef jerky directly. Won't it affect the taste?" Du Ji unconsciously frowned. "No need, I'm not hungry. I just wanted to come and see the fish. I don't know why, even though I've lost my memory, I always feel that fish will bring me luck." William was stunned for a moment, then threw the beef jerky back into the wooden barrel. Then, he turned his head and saw their captain reaching into the wooden barrel containing the fish and grabbing a grouper. After a moment of daze, he touched the fish carefully from head to tail like a child, with a silly smile on his face. William looked at Du Ji, who was touching the fish, in astonishment, and sighed inwardly. Poor Paul not only sold his memories to Selma, but also sold his intelligence. Master of touching fish, the fish you touch becomes your private property. When Du Ji grabbed the fish from the wooden barrel, his personal interface immediately awakened a new skill. Du Ji was ecstatic. Amazing skill. You see, he is a pirate, drifting on the sea all day long, and fish is the least scarce thing in the sea. This skill might be considered trash in the ordinary world. But don't forget, this is a mythical world. Sea monsters, mermaids, and sea spirits all have intelligence. Once he touches them, they all become his private property. The key point is not the fish he touches, but the private property behind it. What is private property? It refers to the direct control, exclusive rights, ownership, usufruct, and security rights that the right holder has over specific objects. Completely under personal control, serving personal interests, that is private. So, the king of the North Sea, Lelang Swan's ocean horn, and the giant sea monster summoned by it, as long as he touches it, it becomes his. It's simply too enjoyable. Of course, if he can snatch Lo Lang's ocean horn and keep summoning sea monsters, he will truly become the king of the sea. And what about the sea spirit Selma? Once he touches her, she becomes his too, right? Even a fish that has become a spirit is still a fish. The most crucial point is that, just like Feng Zhong's manipulation, touching fish can also increase his attributes. After all, the literal meaning is the greatest. The so-called muddying the water while touching fish and lazy swimming are just its extended meanings. Just now, after touching the fish for a while, he already felt his attributes rising rapidly. Of course, it might also be related to the new skill he obtained, and he genuinely felt happy. 2 keywords. Double growth, double happiness. In William's bewildered gaze, Du Ji touched every fish in the wooden barrel. Touching horizontally, touching vertically, touching with both hands at the same time. Then, he understood the essence of touching fish. Unlike Feng Zhong's manipulation, which may require multiple attempts to increase attributes, Du Ji's touching fish depends on the size of the fish. The bigger the fish, the higher the attribute increase. Even the dried salted fish hanging there can increase attributes, but the increase is minimal. Du Ji couldn't even figure out if the slight increase from touching the dried salted fish was due to happiness. In the following days, Du Ji basically stopped participating in the ship's affairs. While the other crew members were busy cleaning the deck, mending the sails, and oiling the ropes, he spent most of his time in the sea, diving to catch fish, or rather, playing with fish. Because most of the time, Paul wouldn't bring the fish he caught back to the ship. Even when they encountered a storm, the crew members were busy fighting against the waves, but Du Ji would not participate. In his words, he was the captain, and it was enough for him to be responsible for command and management. Why would he be the captain if he had to do all the work? Through Barry's observation, he concluded that their captain Paul, after his resurrection, had indeed lost his memory. He had forgotten many past events, including sailing, and he couldn't even understand the nautical chart. When the wind direction changed, he didn't even know how to adjust the mast. His performance was like a fool. This was good news for them because their betrayal would never be discovered. But it was also bad news. They were a group of pirates, but they had a captain who couldn't sail. If word got out, they would probably be laughed at by all their peers. Moreover, as William said, Paul lost not only his memory but also seemed to have suffered some damage to his intelligence. Barry, losing memory is too scary. Standing on the deck, watching Paul dive into the sea again, Wayne sighed, if I lost my sailing skills, I wouldn't be able to survive. This fool Paul, why would he trade his memory with the sea monster? Not just memory, probably also sad emotions, or even sleep. Barry said, Selma is fair, there is only one-to-one exchange with her. Paul did exchange his memory for his immortal body, but have you noticed that these days, his strength is getting stronger and stronger, his speed is getting faster and faster, and he even starts to stay awake all night, just holding a fish and laughing stupidly. He told me yesterday that he wanted to change our pirate flag to pink, put a flower wreath on the skull's head, and make the skull smile. I can't imagine what other pirates would think of us if we flew such a flag. Even the king of the South Sea, Saffron's conch, wouldn't fly a pink flag. You didn't agree with him, did you? Wayne seemed to think of the image of a pink smiling skull flag on a pirate ship, and the corner of his eye twitched involuntarily, asking. Of course not. Barry said, I wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Right. Wayne smiled and shook his head, Paul is too greedy. He has lost too much and is no longer a complete person. Barry, should we consider William's suggestion and leave him to go it alone? I suspect that if we continue, he will one day become a mindless, powerful monster, and eventually drag us all into the abyss. No, even if we want to leave him, it's not now, but after we grow stronger. Barry shrugged, now, all of us together can't beat him. To hire a fighter with such high combat power, we would have to pay at least 100 gold coins, but Paul doesn't need a penny, just let him play in the sea. After Paul lost his memory, there were more smiles on the ship. In the boring sailing life, having one more clown on the ship is a good thing for everyone, isn't it? He paused, a mysterious smile appeared on his face, and, don't you think this ship is already ours? Chapter 131, Pink Flag. The days drifting at sea were boring. Moreover, there were only a few people on the ship, and they had already squeezed out all the joy they could from them. If they wanted to continue improving using joy, they could only wait until they reached the shore and influence more people with joy. Therefore, Du Ji could only focus his life on fishing. In the simulation field, strength was the foundation of survival. Otherwise, when encountering other players, he would be killed instantly, and even if he had excellent advanced skills, it would be useless. Moreover, the information on the ship was closed off, and he couldn't do anything other than fishing. When the captain fished and went out to sea to fish, Du Ji's strength improved rapidly. There were too many fish in the sea. Every time he caught one, his strength would increase by 1 point. Occasionally, he would luckily encounter a school of sardines or a group of large fish like whales and sharks. Du Ji's attributes would soar like a rocket. In these few days, his ranking had already risen from over 900 to 223. At this time, there were only over 600 candidates left in the simulation field. It had to be said that even for elites, it was difficult to survive and stay in the simulation field. In the end, this was a game based on luck. Not to mention, with his kind of death at the beginning, 9 out of 10 would not survive. If he only had the keyword fishing, he wouldn't be able to recover even if he wanted to. You could still fish even if you threw it into the sea. If he lost his life, he would be directly eliminated, and even if the fish gnawed his body clean, his attributes wouldn't grow. Through these few days of fishing, Du Ji gained new experience. Dolphins were not fish, turtles were not fish, crabs were not fish, and touching them wouldn't increase any attributes. However, touching octopuses, whales, and squids would increase attributes. In the definition of biology, octopuses and squids were mollusks, and whales were mammals, but here, they were all considered fish. In other words, there were two ways the simulation field judged fish. One was if it was originally a fish, and the other was if the name had the word fish. According to this algorithm, Du Ji felt that if he touched Zhang Xiao from the Peerless Twins, he could also make her his private possession. Being skilled at fishing was more suitable when paired with a skill that could change other people's names. On the 5th day of drifting at sea, Du Ji finally saw land. Pirate ships needed to dock to replenish supplies and fresh water. Barry and the others lowered the pirate flag and replaced it with a regular merchant ship flag. After all, pirates were illegal organizations. If they openly docked with the pirate flag, it would be a provocation to the navy and would immediately be met with coastal artillery fire and naval encirclement. No pirate ship would be stupid enough to do that. But after taking down the pirate flag, even if the coastal garrison knew they were pirates, they would turn a blind eye and let them replenish supplies on the shore. After all, pirates going ashore also meant spending money, which could promote the economic circulation of coastal towns. Du Ji leaped out of the sea and onto the deck. He shook off the water droplets from his hair and came to Barry's side, smiling. "Barry, after we go ashore, find a tailor shop and let's change the flag." "What should we change it to?" Barry's heart skipped a beat and asked. "Didn't I tell you before? A pink flag with a smiling skull." Du Ji looked at Barry strangely, looking at the pirate hat on his head. "Not only should we change the flag, but we should also change the pattern on our pirate hats. We want to be a group of pirates who can bring joy to others. And, I'm planning to change the name of the ship as well, to the Smiling Angel. Paul, if we do that, our peers will laugh at us, and from then on, no one will be afraid of us." Barry's face turned red. "I strongly disagree with changing the flag to pink. But this is my ship. Why should I need your permission to change it?" Du Ji said, "I can change it to whatever I want. I can even paint the whole ship pink and cover it with women's underwear. Paul, if you insist on changing the flag to pink, me, Wayne, and everyone on the ship will leave." Barry said angrily. "I don't care. I've already lost my memory. To me, you guys are just like a group of strangers." Du Ji smiled. "Anyway, we're about to go ashore. I can recruit a new group of sailors anytime, people who share the same goals as me. I will go with them to find happiness." "Damn it!" Barry was stunned. He suddenly realized that the memoryless Paul was just using them to bring the ship back to the shore. The matter of the ship being his that he had thought of before didn't exist at all. As long as Paul was alive, the ship would always belong to Paul, and no one could take it away. But could he really give up this ship? How was that possible? If he could afford a ship, he would have become a captain himself a long time ago. Moreover, after Paul became powerful, they hadn't even done a proper job yet, and he didn't even have a pension. Damn Paul! At this moment, he suddenly missed the previous Paul who was determined to find the trident of the sea god and become the pirate king. At least that Paul still had an ambitious fighting spirit, not like now, only wanting to be a clown who brings joy to the world. Paul, have you ever thought about seeking the trident of Poseidon? Barry took a deep breath, looked at Du Ji, and laughed. That's your dream. If you're willing to give up that damn pink skull, we're willing to accompany you to find the trident of Poseidon, to make the flying giant bird the ruler of the entire ocean. Barry, the trident of Poseidon is a trap. Du Ji shrugged. Life is short, why should we fight to the death with others for a false name, instead of seeking more happiness in this short life? Right, Wayne. Wayne kept silent with a dark face. The parrot Wendy had become familiar with Du Ji these days. Perhaps its brain capacity was limited, and it had long forgotten about the ghost. It opened its mouth and shouted, "Pink Skull, Paul, Barry says you're a clown." "Shut up!" Wayne and Paul scolded at the same time. The parrot fluttered its wings and flew away, standing on the mast and continuing to shout, "Barry also said you would turn into a monster." "Barry, did you really say that?" Du Ji asked, "In your heart, am I that unbearable?" "Paul, don't listen to that stupid bird's nonsense." Barry looked at Du Ji and suddenly sighed, "At this point, we can't lie to you anymore. Paul, you lost your memory, not because you hit your head, but because you made a deal with the sea monster Selma. You exchanged your past memories for immortality, just to become the Pirate King one day. You've paid too much for the position of Pirate King. If you insist on changing the pirate flag to pink, when you get your memory back from Selma, won't you hate your current self?" "I made a deal with Selma." Du Ji was stunned. "If you don't believe it, you can stab yourself." Barry said, "An ordinary person's wound won't heal automatically, nor can they hold their breath underwater for half an hour." Du Ji pulled out his curved knife with doubt, cut his arm, and then, he was surprised to find that the wound really healed quickly. He said with joy on his face, "By the gods of the sea, I actually have immortality." "Paul, with immortality, you have the qualifications to compete for the king of the sea. Why do you want to turn yourself into a clown?" Barry said with a heavy heart. "Barry, if I become the king of the sea, can I make all pirate ships fly the pink flag?" Du Ji suddenly got excited. "Are you having a feud with the pink flag?" Barry cursed in his heart, he gritted his teeth and said, "Of course, the premise is that you have to become the pirate king first. Then, you can write your rules into the pirate code, even make them dance before boarding the ship. So we'll become the pirate king first." Du Ji looked around at everyone. All the sailors on the deck nodded at the same time. "Paul, it's meaningless to just let one ship fly the pink flag. If you want to fly it on all the pirate ships in the world." Barry saw that his persuasion worked, and he continued to strike while the iron was hot like coaxing a child. "We are all familiar with this ship, and everyone is united. We can all assist you to become the Pirate King, as long as you give up the idea of dyeing the flag pink." "Really?" Du Ji asked. "Really?" Everyone nodded again. Wayne said, "But you must give up the idea of hanging a pink flag." "I can give up hanging a pink flag, but are you willing to add a suffix to your names for me?" Du Ji looked around at everyone, his face earnest. "I firmly believe that sea fish can bring me luck. I want everyone to add the name of a sea fish after their names. For example, you, Barry Sullivan, can you add the word flying fish after your name? How about changing it to Barry Sullivan Flying Fish? After all, when a sea fish falls into the water, it won't die." Chapter 132, Du Ji is a slave owner. Compared to hanging a pink flag, adding a suffix to the name is a trivial matter. Which pirate doesn't have their own nickname? And, the nickname Sea Fish is acceptable. "No problem." Barry readily agreed, "From now on, my name will be Barry Sullivan Flying Fish." "I'm Wayne Pusis Swordfish." Wayne followed. "I'm Pierrot Crim Turtle." Helmsman Pierrot said. "No, it can't be turtle, we should all use sea fish." Du Ji corrected seriously, "Pierrot, in the future, we will be the famous Sea Fish Legion." "All right, I'm Pierrot Crim Octopus." Pierrot thought for a moment and changed his name again. "I'm Songis Bominil." Assault Soldier Songis said. "I'm William Tolan Sea Flounder." Soon, everyone on the ship had a suffix of their own fish in their name. Whenever someone changed their name, Du Ji would walk over kindly, shake their hand, and give them the most sincere congratulations. congratulations, you have your own new name and have become a pioneer of the Sea Fish Legion. On the ship, every person did not escape Du Ji's grasp. When everyone had finished changing their names, Du Ji smiled and continued, Barry Sullivan Flying Fish, find a tailor to change our flag to pink after we go ashore. Paul, didn't you say that as long as we agreed to change our names, you wouldn't change the flag? Barry looked at Du Ji with undisguised disgust. Paul, I'm telling you clearly, I hate pink flags. But this time, I will obey your command, after all, this is your ship. It really worked. Unlike those brainless fish in the sea, intelligent fish would indeed obey his command. Du Ji felt delighted and looked at the others. What do you think? Anyway, this is your ship. Wayne's tone was also full of disgust, but he no longer voiced any objections. Barry, go and cut Wayne. Du Ji looked at Barry, thought for a moment, and gave a new order. He had to test the limits of private property. Do I have to? Barry drew his saber, looked at Du Ji, and hesitated to ask. Captain, what did I do wrong? Wayne nervously took a step back. You can't treat me like this. Pierrot and the others looked at their captain in confusion. It's necessary. Du Ji ordered again. This time, Barry decisively swung his sword. Wayne dodged and counterattacked. Du Ji ordered again, Wayne, don't resist. You stupid bastard, why should I listen to you when you want my life? Wayne became furious and continued to fight Barry with his sword. Seeing the two of them fighting fiercely, Du Ji waved his hand and stopped them. All right, stop it. The two of them stopped, panting heavily, but still glared at each other, occasionally casting resentful glances at Du Ji. Don't look at me like that, I was just joking with you. Barry, I mean, your temper is too hot-tempered. Can't I just want to change the flag to pink? Do you have to take your anger out on Wayne because of a joke? Du Ji showed the gentlest smile, relieving the anger between the two. After we go ashore, I'll treat everyone. The smile infected everyone, and when they heard that the captain was treating them, Barry and Wayne put down their hatred for each other. And Pierrot and the others didn't think there was anything wrong with hanging a pink flag on the pirate ship. Through these two incidents, Du Ji verified the limits of private property. If the command does not threaten their own lives, they will obey, but once it threatens their lives, they will also fight back, even resenting the one who issued the command. To be precise, private property is more like a slave. Most of the time, slaves will obey the commands of their masters. But if the master mistreats the slaves too much, it is likely to provoke their resistance or rebellion, and they will resist the master, just like the chicken you raise. Although it is your private property, when you want to kill it for meat, it will struggle and run away. The right to life is greater than the power of command. Private property is obviously not as loyal as in the simulation field. After all, those who were loyal to him, although they maintained their own thoughts, when he was in danger, they would come forward to protect him and meticulously execute any command he issued. It is the loyalty of the monarch wants the minister to die, the minister has no choice but to die. However, this was already quite good. At least these people wouldn't leave his ship for the time being, nor would they disobey his harmless little orders. With ready-made people, who would want to recruit a bunch of novices. Just like cows need to be fed enough fodder to produce milk, treating his own slaves with a bit of respect and freedom, they should follow him wholeheartedly. That was enough. This was a port called Madoc. Behind the port was a small town with a population of about 50,000. There were about 120 soldiers stationed at the port, responsible for its security. The flying giant bird docked. Leaving 2 crew members to guard the ship, Du Ji and Barry entered the port. 2 merchant ships were docked at the shore. Porters in linen clothes were carrying barrels filled with beer or rum onto the ships, and others were unloading goods such as cotton, spices, and ivory from the ships. The sailors on the merchant ships were also equipped with swords. They were all robust, looking not much different from pirates. As Du Ji and others passed by, the sailors cast warning glances at them. Some even spat on the ground and cursed their mothers, showing their contempt. That's the Duff family's cargo ship. They're in cahoots with Navy Admiral Camillo, Barry explained in a low voice, obviously not wanting to provoke the sailors. Apart from the 4 sea kings, no one dares to touch their merchant ships. Sometimes, they even fly the pirate flag and rob other merchant ships. What a chaotic world! Du Ji responded indifferently, his eyes sweeping over the merchant ship. When he saw the ship's steward, he even gave him a friendly smile, saying, Don't worry, Barry. The moment we become the pirate king, all the merchant ships will obediently pay tribute to us. Along the way, Barry's mood had improved a lot, but the image of the pink smiling skull was still lingering in his mind, filling him with despair for the future. Hearing this, he snorted, I'm waiting for that day to come. At this moment, there were still over 600 contestants in the simulation field. Du Ji had been observing the merchant ship, trying to spot any contestants, but everyone on the ship looked similar, making it difficult to identify the contestants at a glance. Perhaps, this was what a normal simulation field should be like. Everyone was trying hard to play their role, increasing their own strength. No one was flipping the table. Only when the simulation field announced the top 10 names a month later, would the real fight begin. Speaking of which, Du Ji had never seen what it was like when the top 10 of the simulation field were announced. The previous 2 simulation fields had collapsed too quickly. Of course. He had also never seen a derivative item. Nan Yalong had said that derivative items had only appeared once in the simulation field, a weapon called the Spear of Slaughter, a derivative item of the keyword slaughter. It was said that the examinee who held that keyword had used the spear to slaughter a city, personally killing 80,000 adult men, which made the spear evolve into a derivative item. The spear gained intelligence and became indestructible, automatically pursuing and killing enemies relentlessly. However, after the examinee who created the Spear of Slaughter slaughtered 80,000 people, the simulation field ended, and no one had ever witnessed the power of the Spear of Slaughter. Over time, no one cared about the derivative items in the simulation field anymore. However, Nan Yalong did tell Du Ji that his gluttonous sword from the first simulation field, if he persistently stabbed others in the buttocks, there was a high chance it could evolve into a derivative item. Chapter 133, High Reward for a Child. In such a chaotic world, happiness is clearly not a good keyword for expansion. It has been 5 days, and Du Ji still hasn't advanced to the second level of skills. He still only has the skill of making the other person feel better. Besides making the other person's mood better, this skill doesn't have any special effects. When he smiles, the other person will still attack him. Even slacking off hasn't advanced to the second skill. It has to be said. The skills that advance through keywords really have no regularity to follow. After entering the town, everyone went their separate ways. Chef William went to buy food. Pierrot, with an unwilling face, went to find a tailor to make new flags and emblem designs. Of course, he also had to find a painter to change the ship to the damn Smiling Angel name. He complained all the way, stupid name, why not just change the name to Smiling Clownfish? Du Ji, along with Barry and the others, entered the only bar in town. The bar always had the latest information. Ryan, bring 5 barrels of beer and 4 roasted deer legs. As soon as they entered, Barry didn't even look up and ordered food and drinks. Obviously, he was a regular here. Ryan was the owner of the tavern, in his 50s. When he saw Barry and the others, he commanded the waiters to bring the drinks and jokingly said to Barry, "Old man, did you strike it rich?" Barry waved his hand and said, "Don't mention it, haven't opened for half a month, and there are no big fish anymore. I'm afraid I can't even afford your beer. I heard you guys were looking for the legendary trident of the sea god, is that true?" Ryan wiped the glasses and smiled as he looked at Paul, asking. "That's right, but we've given up on that plan." Barry didn't let Du Ji speak, he didn't plan on revealing that he had lost his memory as the captain. In his opinion, trading with Selma was too foolish. And once others found out that Paul had become immortal, it would bring them endless trouble. Correct decision. Ryan smiled, "I heard that the route to Hid Island is already crowded with pirates. Everyone wants to get a share, but many people can't even get to the island and end up being killed. Bounty hunters are taking advantage of the chaos and have already made a fortune. These days, there's a rising star called Black Demon Hand. He single-handedly killed 5 pirate groups the size of yours in one day. Everyone on each ship was chopped into pieces by him, not even sparing the cooks. It's a good thing you're not going to Hid Island. At this time, there are no other pirates intercepting merchant ships, you can make a big profit." Black Demon Hand? Du Ji's eyebrows twitched, could this guy be a candidate? So brutal. Barry was stunned for a moment, does Mahamadu just let him slaughter pirates on his territory? Mahamadu wants to catch him, but until now, no one has seen his shadow. Ryan said, "The reason I know he's called Black Demon Hand is because he likes to piece together the fragments of the bodies to form those words." Damn! confirmed. This guy must be a candidate, only candidates would spare no effort to make a name for themselves. His keyword is either slaughter or brutal. No matter which simulation field, this type of keyword is the easiest to grow in the early stages. Unfortunately, in every field, there will be such keywords. The first simulation field had a slow killer, and the one who came to teach him a lesson in the second simulation field also awakened the keyword of slaughter. At that time, that guy was ranked 8th. However, in the first 2 simulation fields, he raised his attributes too high, and those 2 guys didn't even make a splash. But this time, he almost wasted 5 days of water, but killed several people. Moreover, the information from the tavern owner is definitely outdated. That guy might have killed many more people by now. Encountering slaughter, he probably has a high probability of losing. Damn it! Ryan, do you have any other fresh news? Du Ji asked. Ryan looked at Du Ji, rubbed his hands, smiled but didn't say anything. Du Ji smiled and took out a gold coin from his pocket and threw it over. Ryan skillfully caught it and casually put it in his pocket, whistling and smiling. Little Paul is becoming more generous. At this moment, the young waiter of the bar brought the beer to everyone. Ryan carried a plate of sliced ham and walked out from behind the bar, placing the plate in front of Du Ji. He pulled over a chair and sat next to everyone, lowering his voice and said, "I heard that Admiral Antonio is going to deploy the Navy to block the Hid Island route in 3 days, closing the door and killing the dogs, completely wiping out the pirates inside." Barry was stunned. According to their sailing speed, they would enter the Hid Island route in 2 days. This news came just in time. Ryan winked at them with a smile. "Anyway, you guys aren't planning on going to Hid Island, right?" He paused for a moment, "Then this news isn't worth a gold coin. As a bonus, I'll give you another one for free. Admiral Camillo plans to form a new legion called the Dagger Corps. It is said that the Dagger Corps will recruit only elites, and they will disguise themselves as pirates and infiltrate pirate groups to dismantle them from within." "Such a secretive plan, where did you hear it from?" Barry asked. "I naturally have my sources of information." Ryan smiled mysteriously. 2. Counter General Camillo's bayonet plan, Mahamadou decided to launch a vanguard operation, selecting excellent pirates to infiltrate the Navy and relay information. Du Ji lowered his voice, speaking mysteriously. "Isn't this just like the plot of Infernal Affairs? As if no one else could play this game." Du Ji was still scheming to muddy the waters. He regretted not being the one to leak the news about the Trident of Poseidon. If he had been the one to stir up this mess, he could have fished in troubled waters, and his attributes would have skyrocketed. Barry's brow twitched heavily, casting a strange look at his captain. "Is this true?" Ryan looked at Du Ji skeptically. "The bayonet plan was only decided the night before last. Mahamadou shouldn't have reacted so quickly. Besides, the direction you came from, it's impossible for you to have had contact with Mahamadou." "I heard it from the sea monster Selma," Du Ji said seriously. "Sea monster Selma?" Ryan's eyes widened in shock. "You encountered Selma?" "Ryan, keep your voice down," Du Ji chided. "I traded for a powerful force from Selma." With that, he reached out and twisted the sturdy oak table. A corner of the table, like a block of tofu, was easily broken off by him. Ryan knew what Paul had been like before. He looked at the oak table missing a piece, clearly stunned. After a long while, he came back to his senses. "What did you give in return?" "Ryan, that's my secret." Du Ji smiled. "If you give me back the gold coin, I can tell you even more important information." The mention of Selma shocked Ryan. He reluctantly took out the gold coin Du Ji had given him earlier. "Paul, your information better be worth this price, otherwise, you'll never taste old Ryan's gin again. Selma has reached the end of her life. She plans to find an excellent pirate to carry on her lineage." Du Ji's voice dropped even lower. "It is said that any man who can impregnate her can have all the treasures she has collected over the years." Pfft! Barry spat out the mouthful of beer he had just taken. Ryan's face turned beet red. "Paul, this joke isn't funny at all. Did I meet Selma, or did you?" Du Ji looked at Ryan, speaking seriously. "Even Poseidon can fall, let alone a sea monster? The offspring of Selma are her own. This is the heritage of sea monsters. I saw it in a book on her table. How could it be false?" He seemed to remember something, leaned closer to Ryan, and warned seriously, "Ryan, you can tell others about Selma's high reward for a child. But you can't tell anyone about her weakness and the secret of her heritage. Otherwise, if I'm hunted down by Selma and become a ghost, I won't let you off. Chapter 134, Fun Person. Selma? Weak? Desperate for a child? A series of information made the innkeeper Lane's head buzz. If this is true, it is no less than the trident of the sea god, enough to cause a major earthquake in the pirate circle. The sea nymph Selma has been alive for who knows how many years, and there are countless legends related to her. Who knows how much treasure she has collected over the years. As long as she can successfully get pregnant, she can obtain these treasures. Oh my god! If Lane hadn't drunk too much over the years and hurt his body, he would have wanted to try it. Not to mention that Selma's appearance has always remained the same. Even if she has turned into a fossil, for the sake of treasure, she would have to carve a hole in the fossil. Everyone knows that Selma has always adhered to the principle of fair trade. If she says she is desperate for a child, she will definitely deliver the treasure. Paul, you can't joke about this kind of thing. Lane picked up the glass on the table, regardless of whose it was, and drank it in one gulp. If you make a mistake, someone will really die. Lane, old Barry wouldn't lie, right? Doogie smiled and turned to Barry. Barry, did I make a deal with Selma? Barry nodded heavily. He was sure that Paul had made a deal with Selma, but he couldn't be sure if the desperate for a child thing was true. According to reason, it shouldn't be true, after all, Paul had lost all his memories. But who knows if Selma would use his mouth to spread the news of her desperation for a child. Just like how the sea god sealed his daughter for no reason, the methods of gods and monsters cannot be based on common sense. However, the captain only asked if he had made a deal with Selma. If this matter is true, Paul's transformation is so great that no one would believe he hadn't seen Selma. As for telling Lane his suspicions, there is no need for that at all. He and Lane are not that close. He even planned to ask Paul after leaving the inn to confirm whether Selma's matter is true. He still feels young. After confirming that Paul did indeed make a deal with Selma, Lane walked away in a daze, muttering to himself behind the bar, not even in the mood to serve customers. Full of food and drink. Doogie and the others left Lane's inn, agreed on the time to return to the ship, and the crew members went to have fun on their own. In a short while, only Doogie and Barry were left in the group. In a place where no one was around, Barry finally asked the doubt in his heart, "Captain, didn't you lose your memory?" "Yet." Doogie nodded with a smile. Barry's heart skipped a beat. "Then what about Selma's desperate for a child?" "I lied to him," Doogie said confidently. Barry's vision went black, and he shook his head violently. "Why? Barry, don't you think it would be fun to have a group of pirates propose to Selma and then find out that it's all fake?" Doogie laughed. "When the truth of this scam is revealed, everyone will be laughing their heads off." Are you just doing it for fun?" Barry was going crazy. "Of course." Doogie nodded seriously. "There is nothing more important than happiness. And Selma deprived me of my memories, so I'm causing her some trouble as revenge." "But you gained immortality from her, it was a fair trade," Barry said. "That doesn't stop me from having fun with her." "Barry, don't worry, this is just a good-natured joke, no one will actually sleep with Selma." Doogie smirked. "You know, she has a fish tail." "Fish tail?" Some inappropriate images flashed in Barry's mind. Then, he shook his head and looked at the people on the street around him, lowering his voice. "Paul, is this the main point? Spreading the news of Selma's desperation for a child won't bring us any benefits, it will only bring us endless trouble. Not just Selma, all the pirates you deceived will eventually vent their anger on you." "Barry, I am a man who wants to be the pirate king." Doogie looked at Barry and shook his head. "If I can't bear even this risk, how can I rule the entire ocean? But these risks are all self-inflicted." Barry couldn't help but roar. "Yes, only by defeating more pirates will our reputation grow." Doogie said, "Instead of challenging them one by one, it's better to let them come to me, and then we defeat them and incorporate them. Our pirate group will become stronger and stronger." Barry was speechless, he really was going crazy. If possible, he even wanted to pry open Paul's head and see if Selma had put a pile of shit in it. "Do you know who will come?" Barry asked. "Anyway, they won't be smart people." Doogie shrugged. Smart people won't believe in Selma's desperation for a child, they will just watch the show. He paused and added, just like me. Fuck. Barry cursed heavily. This time, he really didn't know what to say. Oh, by the way, Barry, I forgot to tell you, the Mahamedu's dagger operation was also made up by me. Du Ji looked at Barry, lowered his voice, and laughed. Barry widened his eyes. Are you crazy? When this news gets out, General Camillo will definitely spend a lot of energy searching for spies in the Navy. When he's exhausted from the search, we'll release the news that we made it all up. Don't you think that's interesting? Du Ji said, laughing, of course, if he really finds something, it will be even more interesting. Mahamadu will definitely go crazy. But by doing this, you're offending both Mahamadu and Makaro. We'll have a hard time moving an inch in the East Sea in the future. Barry stared blankly at Du Ji. Is it worth it just for a laugh? Worth it? Of course, it's worth it. As long as I can bring more joy to the world, everything I do is worth it. Du Ji glanced at Barry, chuckled, and said, Barry, you said before that we want to become the Pirate King. So, both Mahamadu and Makaro are obstacles on our path to success. You can't possibly be naive enough to think that if we do nothing, they will willingly give us the title of Pirate King, right? Or do you think that by finding the trident of Poseidon and trading it for the feather of the sea from Janus, we can rightfully become the Pirate King? Barry opened his mouth, but was at a loss for words. Let's not even talk about whether we have a chance to snatch the trident of Poseidon among all these forces. Even if we do get it and trade it for the feather of the sea, what then? Can we keep the feather of the sea? Du Ji said, maybe, as soon as we get the feather of the sea, it will be snatched away. The search for the trident of Poseidon was just a ruse. I never thought we could find the trident of Poseidon. Barry was muttering in his heart. Barry, everything I do is to weaken everyone's power as quickly as possible. Only by causing chaos can we possibly rise from it. Du Ji looked out at the sea. There's great wisdom hidden in this, which you won't understand. Just follow me and enjoy the show. Next, we'll stop at every port. We need to spread Selma's news as quickly as possible. You're crazy, you must be crazy. Barry shook his head, his face full of despair. We only have one pirate ship, and there are only 12 of us on board. We'll be torn to pieces by the two major forces, not even leaving a trace. Barry, you're overthinking. Du Ji laughed, with all the fuss about the trident of Poseidon, and Antonio planning to hang pirates on Herd Island, no one will pay attention to us small fish. By the time they're free to deal with us, we might have grown into a great white shark. He propped his chin, rubbing his cheek. Barry, how do you think we should drag Roland Swan into this? He has the Horn of the Sea, right? If he also joins this war, the sea will definitely be even more lively. Barry looked at Paul, suddenly feeling that he was very unfamiliar. The previous Paul also wanted to find the trident of Poseidon, but he was just full of passion, leading everyone to their deaths. But the amnesiac Paul had learned to use wisdom, and it sounded quite feasible. This was simply unbelievable. The key point was, Barry felt that if they continued to follow Paul's strategy, the speed at which the flying giant bird would meet its end seemed to be faster than before. He missed the simple and naive Paul more and more. Chapter 135, I Still Have Use. Barry, Mahamadu has taken a liking to Lorang Swan's wife and has decided to start a war to take her back as the wife of the king of the East Sea. What do you think of this reason? Not very good. Lorang Swan has many women, and Mahamadu wouldn't start a war for such a foolish reason. Then, Safra found a female ocean horn, while Lorang's ocean horn is male. When the male and female ocean horns meet, they will merge into a new ocean horn. Blowing it can summon the Dead Sea God for battle. What do you think of this? Even worse. It sounds ridiculous. Paul, where did you hear these nonsense stories from some bard? We already have enough trouble now. Why don't you stop coming up with these wild ideas? If you have the time, why don't you find a prostitute to release your vigorous energy? Du Ji teased old Barry all the way, enjoying his happy attributes, and returned to the flying giant bird. When passing by the Du Fei family's merchant ship, Du Ji stopped talking. He wasn't sure if there were any candidates on the merchant ship. It wouldn't be good if his identity was exposed. His current strength was still weak and not suitable for confrontation. Arriving at the flying giant bird, the painter was sitting in the pocket, changing the name of the ship. Seeing this scene, Barry's heart skipped a beat again, and he began to consider whether he should retire early. Du Ji and Barry were about to board the ship. A 17 or 18-year-old boy suddenly rushed over from the side and stood in front of them. He looked at Du Ji and said, "Sir, your eyes are full of wisdom, as sharp as an eagle in the sky, your body is full of strength, like a rock on the shore, able to withstand any wind and rain, your smile is full of confidence. You must be the captain of this ship, right?" "Correct." Du Ji was flattered by his praise and looked at the boy, nodding with a smile. "I wonder if insignificant me is qualified to join your team." The boy humbly bowed to Du Ji and then raised his head, looking at him pleasingly. "If I can work on your ship, it will be the greatest fortune of my life." "Of course, no problem." Du Ji smiled and nodded. "My ship is currently short of people. We need more fresh blood. Paul, he's just a kid, and he doesn't seem to have any sailing experience." Barry couldn't help but frown. "At this time, bringing him on board will only be a burden to us." "Sir, I can feel the kindness in your sturdy figure. I can tell that you have a significant position on this ship." "Sir, both my parents have died, and I can no longer survive in this small town." The boy looked at Barry, fidgeting with his clothes. "Give me a chance, okay? I am strong, I can do anything, I want to go to sea, I want to become a pirate." "Barry, don't make things difficult for a child." Du Ji frowned and looked at Barry, reproaching him. "I didn't mean to make things difficult for him. I also think he's pretty good." Barry smiled and even reached out to touch the boy's head. "Kid, what's your name?" "Vito, Vito Hoover." The boy blushed and shyly said, "My name may not be as good as yours, but it's the best name my parents could think of." "All right, Vito. From now on, you are a member of my team." Du Ji laughed heartily and readily agreed to the boy's request. "But before you come on board, you need to add a nickname after your name, the nickname of the sea fish. It's our tradition." "Captain, of course, no problem." Vito smiled and didn't doubt him. "I can be called Vito Hoover Silverfish." "Okay, Vito Hoover Silverfish." Du Ji warmly shook his hand and said with a smile, "I declare that from now on, you are a member of the Smiling Angel." At the moment he shook the boy's hand, his consciousness seemed to return in an instant. He immediately realized that what he had just done was abnormal. He had agreed to board a ship with a stranger without knowing anything, and everything happened as if it were natural. Damn it! He had fallen for a skill. "Thank you, Captain. It is my honor to work on your ship. Your generosity is admirable, no wonder you have become a ship captain at such a young age." Vito smiled and continued to maintain his shy and humble demeanor. "If one day I can become a captain like you and have my own ship, that would be great. It will happen, as long as you work hard on my ship." Du Ji smiled and calmly let go of the boy's hand. After this little fish became his possession, his skill no longer affected him. But this also made Du Ji feel a sense of dread. If he hadn't awakened the skill of fishing, he would have probably fallen into the hands of this kid without even realizing it. Advanced skills are too terrifying. They are unstoppable. Judging from the effect of his skill, it should be something like flattery and bootlicking. When we reach the open sea, I'll get rid of him. This bewitching skill is too powerful. Although he is not affected by it, the crew members lose their judgment and may do some inappropriate things, which could ruin his grand plan. His crew members should only follow his orders. In the afternoon, the crew members gradually returned. 18-year-old Vito became the most popular person on the ship with his silver tongue. Everyone liked him, including the parrot Wendy. Throughout the afternoon, while the crew members were busy loading and unloading cargo and organizing supplies, Vito didn't do anything, and no one had any complaints. Moreover, Vito learned a lot of information from everyone, including the fact that their captain had made a deal with a sea nymph. He even specifically came to Du Ji to confirm the truth of the matter. Of course. Mostly, he was trying to find out Du Ji's true identity. After all, if a person's words and actions are too contradictory, they might be a candidate in the simulation field. No longer affected by his skills, Du Ji's responses were watertight. Vito probed back and forth several times, finally confirming that Paul was indeed a native of this world. Moreover, a lucky native. Thus, his expression became increasingly joyful. Du Ji coldly observed his performance, further solidifying his resolve to get rid of him. If he let him continue his antics, the ship would no longer be his. On this ship, only he was allowed to slack off. At dusk, the soaring giant bird, no, the smiling angel, left Madak port. Generally, pirate ships do not stay in the port overnight. After all, that's the Navy's territory, who knows what dangers might arise at night. For their own safety, most of the time, they prefer to drift at sea. Captain, you have eyes that see through everything and wisdom that penetrates the fog. The trident of Poseidon will surely be yours. Next, we're going to Herd Island, right? In the captain's cabin, Vito flattered Duji and then proposed his suggestion. Vito, among all the people on the ship, only you can see that I possess unparalleled wisdom. Duji laughed, that's right, we are indeed going to Herd Island next. Go and convey my orders. Captain, all your decisions are the wisest. Vito smiled and turned to leave the captain's cabin. Just as he turned around, half of a curved blade suddenly protruded from his chest. Vito took a big step forward, trying to shake off the blade piercing him. At the same time, his mouth moved quickly. Captain, your heart is as broad as the sea, your wisdom shines like the stars. What's your keyword? Duji interrupted him, pressing a dagger against his throat. Flattery, bro, I'm not dangerous, my keyword has to attach to someone else, let me live, we can cooperate. In the simulation field, every candidate on the brink of death would burst with a strong will to survive. He quickly said, bro, I know your plan, I just awakened my second advanced skill, it will definitely be useful to you, I'm ranked 480, killing me won't give you much experience. Chapter 136, Using Another's Power. What skill? Duji asked. Bro, can you pull out the knife first? Otherwise, by the time I finish speaking, I'll be eliminated too, Vito said with difficulty. Anyway, I can't beat you. After a moment of thought, Duji pulled out the curved knife. With a muffled groan, fresh blood sprayed out from the wound. Vito's body shook violently, and he quickly spoke, Captain, I have never seen such a beautiful knife technique. It was quick and swift. When it stabbed into my heart, I didn't feel any pain at all. It was like a red-hot iron rod piercing into the snow. You have mastered a merciful knife technique. As he spoke, he secretly glanced at Duji's expression. Seeing Duji's constant ambiguous smile, Vito finally fell into despair and had to continue praising in order to recover. It was really embarrassing to speak like this when the opponent was not affected by the skill. Why was he so unlucky? He encountered someone casually, and that person happened to counter him. A moment later, Vito's injuries completely healed. Looking at Duji, he showed a flattering smile. Captain, I have to say, your willpower is too strong. You weren't affected by the rainbow cannonball at all. He was affected. It's just that I happen to have two keywords. Duji muttered in his heart and asked, now can you tell me what your skill is? Vito sighed and honestly said, the first skill, Rainbow Cannonball, when I use flattering language to please the other party, their vigilance will decrease, and they will enter a dreamy state. Not just dreamy, they practically obeyed. Duji couldn't help but comment, what about the second one? Using another's power. Vito said, by borrowing the authority of my superior to issue orders, anyone under their jurisdiction will unquestioningly believe it. Duji was stunned. Could this be called using another's power? It was clearly called a power usurper, a fiction. If he only had the second skill, conveying such orders might only have one chance, but with the combination of the first skill, he could safely control a team and become the actual leader of a certain team. In his small pirate group, he could become the second in command. In the Mahameda supersized pirate group, he could also step by step become the second in command. One person above 10,000 others. Easily controlling the entire world, this was a keyword qualified to enter the top 10 in the simulation field. A divine skill. Duji quickly understood why Vito confidently said that the second skill could help him. His plans had to wait for rumors to spread before they could take effect. In such a world, relying on the tavern owner to spread information was too slow. But if this guy cooperated, the spread of rumors would quickly form a terrifying storm that would sweep across the entire world. As long as he sent him into Mahamadu or any other pirate group like Safra, with just one command, he could make the whole world chaotic. In the name of Mahamadu, even if he used strange commands like seize the Mother Ocean Horn, Mahameda's subordinates would firmly execute them. Once the war started, The whole thing would become both real and unreal. This guy's skills combined were like Zhao Gao, Zhang Rang, Lu Jin, and Wei Zhongxian. Flattery was much more powerful than manipulation. He could control the situation of the entire world in an absolutely controllable situation. After touching him, Vito could be considered his private possession, so the chaos he stirred up and the fun he caused should be considered his contribution. But private possessions were not as reliable as loyalty. If he really let him out to cause chaos in the world, when this guy grew up, it was possible for him to turn against his master. To use or not to use? Du Ji fell into contemplation. Captain, is your keyword chaos? Vito asked cautiously. Yet. Du Ji glanced at him and asked, why didn't you use your first skill to assassinate me? Once I make a move, the other party will instantly wake up. Vito dryly laughed and explained, my current attributes are not high. If I really make a move against you, others will come to kill me. Moreover, my keyword is not of the violent type. Unless the other party is a participant in the simulation field, killing someone has no benefit for me. Everyone needs to recognize their own position, right? Just like you, Captain, you are also trying your best to make this world more chaotic, aren't you? To be honest, you perfectly used the sea monster Selma to conceal the source of your power, and you even fooled me. Similar to private possessions, when life is threatened, the effect of the skill will be greatly weakened, or even disappear. Understanding the effect of his skill, Du Ji pondered for a moment, looked Vito up and down, licked his lips suddenly, and said, take off your clothes. Hey! Vito was stunned for a moment. He looked at Du Ji, his face showing embarrassment, but he obediently took off his clothes. Standing naked in front of Du Ji, he blushed and twisted uncomfortably. He took a deep breath, made a final struggle, and said, Captain, I don't know where you saw that I am a woman. But I have to remind you that in this world, I am a man, and a dirty one at that. I haven't taken a bath for 3 days. I don't care if you've taken a bath or not. Go find a clean set of clothes in that box over there, wipe the blood off the floor, and then throw your original clothes into the sea. Du Ji glanced at him and said, you came to my room with blood all over your clothes, but you left without a scratch. What do you think the people outside will think? Should I tell them that you also made a deal with Selma? Vito's face turned red, realizing that he had misunderstood. He took 2 quick steps, went over to open the box, found a clean set of clothes, quickly put them on, and used his original clothes to wipe away the bloodstains on the floor. Halfway through his task, he suddenly looked up, asking with joy, Captain, have you agreed to our cooperation? Of course, my keyword is chaos. Your advanced skill can quickly stir up the whole world, why not? Du Ji shrugged and laughed, the premise is that you can't expose my identity or do anything that harms me. Stripping clothes, mopping the floor. One task involved dignity, the other execution, and Vito completed both without any obstacles, not even noticing a thing. Then this man was worth using. Before. He ordered Barry and Wayne to fight each other. In the end, didn't both of them obediently return to his ship? Fortune favors the brave. It was just a covert operation, it wouldn't threaten his life. In theory, Vito, who had been branded a slave, would not betray him. Of course, I never betray my partners. Vito said, Captain, I've been through 3 simulation fields, all of which I topped. In each simulation field, I formed my own team, and we worked together perfectly. Moreover, everyone in the team achieved great results. Me too. Du Ji laughed, anyway, we're still drifting at sea, and you can't go anywhere. In the next few days, let's get used to each other and see how the world situation develops. Then, I'll find a way to send you to Mohameda's territory, and you can start a war between the pirate kings. It would be best to use those pirates to eliminate other candidates. The world is too small, and there are too many candidates. Funny, I was thinking the same thing. Vito stood up, excitedly saying, Captain, my original plan was to become the second in command of a pirate group, recruit more elites, use their power to fight, and finally find a way to get rid of them. However, since the captain wants the world to become more chaotic, I will naturally cooperate fully. After all, this is in the interest of both of us. The more chaotic the world is, the greater the role my keyword can play. That night, Vito stayed in Du Ji's room until midnight. When he left, he was wearing Paul's clothes. Wayne saw it, Wendy saw it, William saw it. So, the next day, even if he didn't say those pleasing words, Barry and the others didn't let him work. Even occasionally when he passed by, they would whistle at his backside. Chapter 137, The one who laughs last is the winner. After reaching a cooperation agreement with Du Ji, Vito's daily flattery was reduced a lot. Unless it was necessary, his behavior was like a normal person, and he had a humble and pleasant personality. In his words, it's like being fat but not calling it fat, and then being fat enough to crush the bed. It was meaningless to brush attributes on several people. Instead, it would easily expose oneself and put oneself in danger. After all, 1 month later, the top 10 ranking list would be announced. If the attributes were raised too high, it would turn oneself into a live target and be attacked by everyone. It's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but hard to guard against a hidden arrow. No matter how high the attributes were, they couldn't withstand a war of attrition. Slowly brushing up the attributes, integrating oneself into this world, until he became the second in command of a pirate king, then he would have power and the situation would be clear. The people who should jump out would have already jumped out. By then, he could make a move to reverse the situation and rapidly increase his attributes, naturally securing a place in the top 10. This was a typical academic approach, completely opposite to Du Ji's. In Du Ji's mind, if his attributes didn't improve, he could be easily defeated by enemies at any time, leaving him with no sense of security. He preferred to be ahead from the beginning, always leading, and then leaving everyone else in the dust. It's hard to say who is right or wrong. But undoubtedly, Du Ji's risk was higher. After a night of rest, the Smiling Angel set sail again. When the pink pirate flag was hoisted, the morale of the crew instantly dropped. The dazzling pink color, the skull with a flower crown, and the previously dark eye sockets now had 2 lifelike eyeballs painted on them. It was simply too cute. Who wouldn't be scared if they went out with such a flag? Vito looked at the pink pirate flag, dumbfounded for a moment, and remembered what happened last night. He lowered his voice and asked, "Captain, so, you are also a woman, right? Where did you see that?" Du Ji looked at his new pirate flag with satisfaction, raised an eyebrow, and smiled back. "We even hung a pink flag. Isn't it obvious? Not only are you a woman, you also have a cute little girl's heart. Mature women wouldn't accept a pink flag, right? If you're not a woman, then you must be a pervert." Vito sarcastically commented in his mind, but his mood inexplicably improved a lot. In the simulation field, women were not at an advantage to begin with. The women who stood out among all the candidates must have strong abilities, either special strength or super intelligence, just like her. This should be stable. "Captain, Antonio will block the route to Herd Island in 2 days. Should we avoid them first?" Barry forced himself to look away from the flag and came to Du Ji's side, asking with a serious face. "Why should we avoid them?" Du Ji looked at Barry strangely. "Our goal is to become the Pirate King. Have you ever seen a Pirate King who escaped? We must participate in this battle, hone our will and combat abilities on the battlefield of iron and blood. Otherwise, what's the use of the immortality I obtained through memories? Just to go fishing in the sea." But Barry wanted to say something. He was interrupted by Du Ji, who waved his hand. "There's nothing to hesitate about. We are pirates, the most fierce pirates. We should be fearless in advance. Since we received the news in advance, we should take the opportunity to save those fellow pirates who were defeated by Antonio and strengthen our team." The most fierce pirates? Barry subconsciously looked at the pink pirate flag fluttering on the mast, and the corner of his eye twitched inexplicably. "Also, we must find the witch Hoya as soon as possible and ask her about the whereabouts of the trident of the sea god," Du Ji said. "Otherwise, if any pirate learns about the trident in advance and kills the witch, we won't get anything." "No one can kill the witch," Barry said. "You can't say for sure." Du Ji smiled and glanced at Barry. "Selma didn't even know how to ask for a child before. Don't worry, Barry, I'm not that foolish. If the battle really exceeds our expectations, we will hide on Herd Island and just watch the show without going out to sea. Do you believe what you just said?" Looking at Paul, who was full of lies, Barry was speechless and once again had the idea of retiring. But this idea only flashed in his mind and then faded away. He then went to command the crew, raised the anchor, adjusted the control ropes, and set sail for Herd Island again. Not long after setting sail, the Smiling Angel encountered two Du Fei family merchant ships that were in the same port as yesterday. Perhaps it was the pink pirate flag that caught the attention of the Du Fei family merchant ships. On the merchant ship, many sailors ran onto the deck, pointing and laughing at the Smiling Angel. Some sailors even unzipped their trousers, making lewd gestures towards the Smiling Angel. Seeing this, Vito spat fiercely to the side. Through the telescope, seeing the actions of the sailors on Du Fei's merchant ship, Barry's face turned even darker. He shouted at the crew in frustration, "Adjust the sails, shake off these bastards." "Barry, why should we shake them off? We are pirates, they are merchant ships, shouldn't we rob them? Besides, they have insulted our dignity. All crew members prepare for battle, we are going to make a big move." The fame of the Smiling Angel starts with the Du Fei family. Du Ji interrupted Barry with a smile. The moment the people on Du Fei's merchant ship laughed, he felt a significant increase in his attributes. Obviously, his pink flag brought joy to the other party, and that was enough. Dignity or anything else, compared to the increase in attributes, was not important at all. And, they would soon stop laughing. "Paul, are you crazy? That's Du Fei's ship." Barry widened his eyes. "If we rob them, we will be hunted down by General Macaro, not to mention, they have two ships. Lice don't itch when there are too many, debts don't worry when there are too many. We've already provoked Selma and Mahamadu, we don't care about one more Du Fei family." "Barry, you're too timid. Don't forget, I have an immortal body, I'm not the weak Paul the First used to be." Du Ji smiled, "Just get close to them, I'll take care of the rest. Vito, you'll be my deputy." "All right." Vito agreed readily. This was their agreed strategy. To attract Mahamadu's attention, they needed to have a record of battle. As pirates, they had to play the role of pirates well, at least to have a name on the bounty list. Robbing Du Fei's ship was undoubtedly a fast track to fame. Moreover, in the early stages of cooperation, he had to win Du Ji's trust. Barry was stunned for a moment, recalling Du Ji's terrifying 1-against-10 combat skills, his confidence inexplicably increased. Perhaps Paul was right, they were no longer the weak giant bird they used to be. What the hell are they doing? Seeing the Smiling Angel suddenly accelerate towards them, the sailors on Du Fei's merchant ship were stunned. "If I'm not mistaken, there are only a dozen people on their ship, right?" "You're not wrong, they do only have a dozen people." The sailor next to him shook his head and laughed, "These stupid guys, they must be first-time pirates, as stupid as their flag. Fellows, prepare for battle, let's send these clowns to hell, their existence is simply an insult to the pirate world." The first mate also didn't take the approaching Smiling Angel seriously. He pulled out his blunderbuss. "Yesterday, these guys looked like paupers, but their ship should be worth a lot of money. Gunners, don't fire, don't damage that ship, it's already our booty. Ha 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 ha." Accompanied by hearty and cheerful laughter, more than 20 sailors all drew their curved knives, ready for battle on the deck. But when Du Ji leaped from the Smiling Angel onto their deck, these people immediately stopped laughing. Du Ji's movements were more agile than a monkey, his strength greater than a wild bull. Almost no one could last a round against him. The battle ended in less than 5 minutes. And that fierce guy, after knocking them down, had already leaped onto another ship, swiftly ending the battle. Barry and the others were stunned. They knew their captain was powerful, but they didn't expect him to be this powerful. He single-handedly took down 2 merchant ships of the Du Fei family. The effortless battle was even somewhat pleasing to the eye. That was the Du Fei family. They were rich. The goods and half a box of gold coins on the Du Fei family's merchant ship dazzled the eyes of all the sailors on the Smiling Angel, and smiles crawled onto their faces. Pirates are greedy, rough, and unrestrained. As long as they have enough money, they can swing their swords at God. At this time, no one cared about the pink flag anymore. Of course, no one cared about the Du Fei family either. Du Ji proved his strength to everyone. Now, every crew member on the Smiling Angel believed that they would definitely become the king of pirates. Praise Paul! Praise Selma! The captured treasure brought unparalleled joy to the pirates. Du Ji's attributes increased again. The pink pirate flag, a robbery, double the joy. Du Ji was always the winner in life. Chapter 138, Who really has control skills? Du Ji asked Vito to be the vice attacker because he was worried that there were other candidates on the Du Fei merchant ship. After all, to some extent, Vito's skills can be used as Wang San. Obviously, he was overthinking. The Du Fei family may have candidates, but they are not on these two merchant ships. With an attribute increase of more than 200 ranks, he can play the role of a superman among a group of sailors who only have basic skills. The martial skills of these sailors are not even comparable to the worst martial arts of the Feng residents. The judgment and maintenance of fishing are obviously different. Two rumors have spread, and it is estimated that they have not even left the tavern in Lein, let alone stirred up the water, let alone touched the fish. Relying solely on physical fishing, the increase in attributes is too slow. Looking at the Du Fei family's crew and sailors gathered together by Du Ji, Barry asked, "Captain, bring the goods back to our ship, we should leave." "Leave? Where to go?" Du Ji looked at Barry strangely, patted his shoulder, and said, "Barry, from now on, our Sea Fish pirate group has 3 pirate ships. What a perfect start. Veen, find 2 new flags and replace the Du Fei family's flag. You want to keep the Du Fei family's ship?" Barry widened his eyes. "Of course." Du Ji nodded, "Not only their ship, but also their people. Mahamatu has more than 200 pirate ships under his command. We must have more people and ships to compete with them." "But they are the Du Fei family." Barry was stunned for a moment, suddenly remembered that Paul had lost his memory, and was about to explain to him. The captain of the Du Fei merchant ship suddenly stood up, looked at Du Ji, and his eyes were full of disdain. "The Du Fei family will never be pirates. Captain Paul, I am Ramon Du Fei of the Du Fei family. You should have heard of my name. I admit that I underestimated your bravery, but your idea is simply whimsical. According to the rules, the goods and gold coins on the ship are left to you. Let us leave. I promise that the Du Fei family will not trouble you." "Barry, is there such a rule?" Du Ji lowered his voice and asked Barry next to him. "There is indeed such a rule." Barry nodded, "No pirate is willing to offend the Du Fei family." "What about the ransom?" Du Ji asked. "You can accept the ransom." Ramon Du Fei's disdain in his eyes became more serious, "But if you accept the ransom, the previous promise will be invalidated, and your smiling angel will be endlessly chased by the Du Fei family." Du Ji looked back at Barry. Barry nodded, "That's the rule. Keep the goods for safety, and if you want money, you will be chased. Then don't take the ransom." Du Ji glanced at Ramon and smiled. "You are not too stupid." Ramon snorted, waved his hand in disgust, "Take your spoils and leave my ship." "Captain Ramon, I only said not to take the ransom, but I didn't say let you leave." Du Ji smiled, "Your attitude annoys me. No one can insult the future pirate king, just like you don't have the courage to insult Mahamatu. So, I decided to give you a little punishment. What do you want to do?" Ramon became alert immediately, "If you kill me, you will bring endless trouble to yourself. The Lafite family will torture you in the cruelest way. You have to consider the consequences. Although I am a pirate, I am a kind person who is willing to spread happiness to the world." Du Ji smiled at Ramon, "Captain Ramon, if you and your crew are willing to wear pink skirts and dance for an hour in the next 3 ports, I will forget the past and let you go." "Paul, you are insulting a viscount." Ramon frowned. "Ramon, calm down." Du Ji smiled and shook his head, "There is another option. You and your crew can join my Sea Fish pirate group, then we will be a family. We can happily force others to dance and bring us joy." "Are you dreaming?" Ramon's tone became more angry, "Fool, I won't accept either of the 2 methods. I warn you, you better let us go, my promise still works." Du Ji signaled veto, and in front of everyone, he took away the angry Ramon Du Fei, and said as he walked, "Viscount Ramon, I know that forcing you to make such a decision in front of everyone damages your dignity. We can talk privately, for example, it is not unacceptable to let only your subordinates dance." Vito followed behind the 2 with a flattering smile, "Flattering, Viscount Ramon, you are a wise man. The wisdom of all the Du Fei family members combined is not even 1/10 of yours. Why don't you consider accepting the captain's proposal? You have seen the captain's bravery. The Sea Fish pirate group is destined to become a powerful pirate group like the King of the 4 Seas. Joining the Sea Fish will definitely be the most correct choice in your life." "Okay, I can join the Sea Fish pirate group, but I will never dance on the pier." Unconsciously, Ramon's tone instantly eased a lot. "Viscount, your wisdom is indeed unparalleled." Du Ji smiled, Every person who joins our pirate group must add a sea fish suffix to their name. You might as well choose a sea fish that you like. When did I say that I want to join your pirate group? When talking to Du Ji, Ramon regained his calmness. Du Ji was helpless, and signaled Vito again, instructing, add a sea fish name after his name first. Vito said, Lord Ramon, your eyes are as bright as the stars, your name is destined to be passed down through the ages. Such a great name, it's a pity there's no suffix of a sea fish behind it. I think shark suits you better, how about calling you Ramon Duffy Shark? Ramon Duffy Shark. Ramon nodded, indeed, the name is not bad. Du Ji released Ramon's hand, so, Lord Ramon Duffy Shark, would you like to join my pirate group? The glory of the Duffy family does not allow me to bow my noble head, but I personally admire your bravery, I can join your pirate group. Ramon looked at Du Ji with a still disgusted gaze, but agreed to his request. On the side, looking at the greatly transformed Ramon, Vito's eyes bulged out. He suddenly realized where the problem was. Fish. Sea fish. Paul can control others through the names of sea fish. Damn it. No wonder his skill failed yesterday, it started with the name change. Flattery can control others' thoughts, but why would chaos awaken such an outrageous skill? What did he do? Could it be that his keyword is not chaos? But his words and deeds are chaotic and disorderly, not following the norm, never knowing what he wants to do next, everything fits the characteristics of chaos. Could his advanced skill be to confuse people's consciousness? In an instant, Vito was in a mess, he suddenly didn't know if the decisions he had made from last night to now were truly his own. Chaos is too terrifying. All right, Ramon, you won't regret this decision, it's the beginning of your lifetime glory. Du Ji patted Ramon's shoulder and instructed with a smile, you are the captain, next, it's up to you to persuade the people below to join our sea fish pirate group. Remember, let each of them add a sea fish suffix to their names, this is the symbol of our sea fish pirate group. Chapter 139, Fountain of Happiness. In this world, the nobles have absolute power of speech. After Lord Lamont was taken away by Du Ji for a while, he changed his mind and joined the sea fish pirates, shocking the crew members who thought that their captain was being threatened or abused. But they had to rely on the Du Fei family for their livelihood and dared not disobey Lord Lamont's orders. In a sense, Lamont Du Fei was the real master, able to decide the life and death of most people, much more effective than Du Ji, the fake master. Mile Aziz Dadu, Cas Jo Kiao Codfish, Thomas Moran Yellowfish. Soon, 40 to 50 people, each with their own fish suffix. The commonly used fish names were limited, so it was inevitable that some people would have repeated names. But Du Ji didn't mind, as long as there was fish in the name, even if everyone was called Dadu, he didn't care. Whenever someone changed their name, Du Ji would warmly shake their hand and say, "Welcome to join the sea fish pirates." This scene confused the crew members of the original giant bird. They didn't understand why their captain was so enthusiastic towards a group of people he had just met. Did Paul really believe that by changing their names, they would truly join the pirate group and fight for them? What exactly had Paul been influenced by since he lost his memory? Everything had become increasingly strange. Veen, Barry, and others once again fell into anxiety about the future. Except for Vito, who knew Du Ji's true identity, no one considered the possibility that Paul had exchanged souls with Du Ji. This was beyond their understanding. Of course, there was also a parrot named Wendy. The silly bird seemed to have forgotten about the ghost. These days, it had been calling itself Wendy Parrotfish. After becoming members of the Sea Fish Pirates, Lamont Du Fei and his crew still couldn't escape the fate of performing at the port. Du Ji was a person who pursued efficiency. He didn't even go to the second port. After subduing them, he immediately returned to the Madoc's port and had them perform for the Navy and residents on the shore. It had to be said that the effect of the sailors dancing in pink skirts was very good. The people on the shore didn't care if they were from the Du Fei family or not. They didn't have many forms of entertainment in their daily lives. The sailors, who were big and rough, danced with black faces, their movements not even coordinated. It was more like a unique and funny play. Both adults and children loved watching it, and they laughed heartily. When the performance ended, they gave them the warmest applause. At that time, the permanent population of Madoc's port was over 50,000, but in just an hour of performance, at least 3,000 people gathered at the port. In short, Lamont Du Fei and his crew brought happiness to many people. Du Ji's attributes improved significantly. With just one performance, his ranking jumped from 223rd to 178th. Of course. The Navy stationed at Madoc's port noticed that something was amiss and even sent people to investigate. After all, the people on the Smiling Angel looked like pirates, and the Du Fei family's merchant ship had just unloaded its cargo at Madoc's port yesterday and turned back just to dance for everyone. It didn't seem normal no matter how you looked at it. However, Lamont Du Fei was now just a small fish in Du Ji's pond. Even though he was reluctant, he held back from betraying his master. He danced while scolding the Navy who helped him. The uninteresting Navy officer didn't linger and left with an embarrassed face, without any conflict with the Smiling Angel. Back at their base, the Navy officer immediately sent someone to report Lamont Du Fei's experience. He understood Lord Lamont's hint. The enemy was powerful and couldn't be provoked by a small garrison in a port. By scolding him away, it was to let him spread the news. He even added his own speculation in the report: Lord Du Fei was likely being held hostage by Mahomedu's people. Fountain of happiness, happiness can be built on the suffering of others. When you spread happiness, there will always be someone around you who falls into misfortune. After Lamont Du Fei and the others finished their performance, Du Ji awakened the second advanced skill of the happiness keyword. Du Ji had been looking forward to the second skill, but he was very disappointed. Because he found that the second advanced skill was just as unreliable as the first one. What did it mean that someone around him would inevitably fall into misfortune? The skill couldn't specify the target, it was random. Du Ji disliked uncontrollable skills. Fortunately, according to the skill description, he was not included in the random targets. So, if someone had to be unlucky, then so be it. He could just use the happiness keyword to improve his attributes. Currently, it seemed that spreading happiness was much faster in increasing his attributes than fishing in troubled waters. Du Ji felt his strength gradually returning. And happiness could clearly be sustained. Lamont Du Fei's performance at Madoc's port was enough to make the people there happy for several days. After leaving Madoc's port again, Vito anxiously approached Du Ji and asked, "Captain, are we being too ostentatious? Having the Du Fei family's people dance at every port, it's too conspicuous. Selma may trade power with you, but she won't let your actions become strange. Our current actions are obviously suspicious. They will only suspect me, not you. So, you are safe," Du Ji smiled and said. He had now transferred to the Du Fei family's merchant ship. It had to be said that the equipment on a large family's ship was luxurious, much more comfortable than his Smiling Angel. "What I mean is, you've provoked others before your attributes have fully developed, and there's a high chance we'll be eliminated prematurely," Vito frowned. "Shouldn't we keep a low profile?" The chaos caused by dancing at the port was too small scale, it didn't bring much attribute growth. Why not endure for a while and make a big move? Although she had agreed to cooperate with Du Ji and inexplicably done some things for him, Du Ji's words and actions seriously conflicted with her values, making her deeply uneasy. Low profile? Du Ji furrowed his brows. He was given a pirate ship at the start, forcing him to drift at sea for 5 days, essentially giving others a 50-meter head start. In the meantime, he dived into the sea to catch some fish. That wasn't too much, was it? When he encountered the tavern owner who sold information, he couldn't possibly not let him spread some information, could he? When he encountered the merchant ship of the Du Fei family, as a proud pirate, he couldn't just watch them provoke him and then slink away, could he? Since he had caught them, letting them dance on the shore to increase his strength wasn't too much, was it? Du Ji felt that his actions were quite reasonable. Even now, he hadn't exposed the identities of other candidates. For so many days, he had been dutifully playing the role of a native pirate captain. In the last simulation field, and the one before that, he was already ranked first by this time. Now he was only in the 170s, he didn't feel safe at all. Wasn't this low profile enough? Du Ji thought about it, but couldn't find any mistakes in his words or actions. Since he wasn't wrong, then it must be the other party who was wrong. He had to correct the other party's erroneous thinking. Du Ji looked at Vito and explained seriously, "Vito, this is a good thing for us and it's part of the plan. We are partners after all. If both of us hide in the dark, we will only become more passive as time goes on. I'm in the open, attracting everyone's attention, which can make more people come out. You hide in the dark, mark them, and further ambush them, then we can take the initiative in this simulation field. Don't forget, our skills can be combined. Is that so? Vito looked doubtful. That's right. Du Ji looked at Vito and continued to instill his thoughts. Vito, this is the elite preliminary competition, the competitors around us are all elites. Not those novices who can't even perform. In such a world, if you want to achieve results, you can't follow the old methods. The art of war says, when you are substantial, you should appear insubstantial, when you are insubstantial, you should appear substantial. Only by confusing the enemy about our real purpose can we achieve final victory. Moreover, I feel that your understanding of keeping a low profile is somewhat biased. Keeping a low profile is one thing, but we still need to develop our strength. Otherwise, when danger comes, we won't even have the ability to resist. Just like when you met me, luckily I'm a kind person, otherwise, you would have been eliminated. Without any strength, if the ship sinks, you fall into the sea, you can't even swim back. I think I understand. Vito looked at Du Ji thoughtfully. Paul, when will you take me to see Mahamadu? At least after the Battle of Hid Island, we don't have the strength to meet Mahamadu now. If you climb up step by yourself, the golden flowers will have cooled. Du Ji smiled. To be honest, after witnessing the efficiency of Vito's name change for Ramon, he was somewhat reluctant to let Vito go. Forcing Ramon Du Fei to change his name by himself would inevitably involve coercion and temptation, which was too troublesome. Chapter 140. After Vito left, Barry and Wayne came to Du Ji's side together. Barry anxiously said, Captain, is what we did too much? They are from the Du Fei family. It's one thing to take their ship, but why do we have to force them to dance? By insulting their dignity like this, we will definitely provoke retaliation from the Du Fei family. And besides, they won't be able to fight for us. I feel like they're looking at me as if they want to tear me apart. We only have 12 people, and I'm really worried that one day, while we're asleep, they'll cut off our heads. Why does everyone think he went too far? Du Ji frowned slightly, looked at Barry and Wayne, and asked with a smile, did you feel happy watching the Du Fei family, who used to be unattainable, dance? Be honest. Barry remained silent for a moment, a smile appearing on his face, and said, I was indeed very happy at that time. Well, that's all that matters. Barry, life is short, so enjoy it. This will be the motto of our Sea Fish Pirate group from now on, Du Ji said. The reason I did this is to tell you that no one is born superior. Barry, in the future, you will be the vice captain of the Pirate King and the head of the Du Fei family will have to bow down and pay respect to you. A person's strength starts from within. Life is short, so enjoy it, the parrot Wendy excitedly jumped around. Happy, happy, Wendy wants to be happy. These days, Wendy has been sticking close to Du Ji, not behaving like her usual self. Wayne held down the restless parrot and frowned, that's easy to say, but there are too many of them. It's okay, I will make them keep dancing, Du Ji said, gesturing towards Ramon, who was glaring at him not far away, and smiled and waved his hand. Ramon angrily looked away. Captain, I don't understand what you mean. Barry said. As long as they keep dancing, Ramon Du Fei will be a shame to the Du Fei family. Even if he is rescued by the Du Fei family, he will be executed. So, he will wholeheartedly stand with us, Du Ji smiled. And I have decided to change our battle strategy. Before each battle, I will make the Du Fei family members stand at the bow of the ship, wearing pink skirts and dancing, to distract the enemy's attention and reduce their guard against us. Then, we will plunder them unexpectedly. This will become the signature of our Sea Fish Pirate group. Ramon agreed. Wayne widened his eyes. He agreed, Du Ji nodded. I promised him that if we capture the second wave of pirates, they will withdraw from the dance team and join the battle sequence. Now, he wants to expand the size of the pirate group even more than I do. Wayne and Barry glanced at each other, suddenly not knowing what to say. Although Paul's method sounded absurd, it did solve all their troubles and worries. And with this method, their pirate group can indeed grow rapidly. Of course, the premise is that they must keep winning battles, because this approach will offend everyone, whether they are nobles or other pirates. But now, they have already embarked on an irreversible path and can only follow Paul to the end. After all, they have already offended Selma, Admiral Macaro, and the Du Fei family. Once they leave the Smiling Angel, Selma and Admiral Macaro might let them go, but no one can escape the punishment of the Du Fei family. Next, Du Ji's pirate ship performed in 2 more ports. At its peak, the number of spectators reached 5,000. Because Du Ji had a new advanced skill called Fountain of Joy, during the second performance, Ramon Du Fei accidentally stepped on the pink skirt of the vice captain behind him, which caused a chain reaction and even tore off the skirts of the people in front, burying his head in the vice captain's buttocks, completely igniting the enthusiasm of the audience. People have a commonality. They can't help but burst into laughter when they see someone embarrassed. So, the spread of joy was very fast. And although the Du Fei family was large, it was inevitable that they would have enemies. These enemies were delighted to see Ramon Du Fei being forced to embarrass himself. Even if they didn't witness it with their own eyes, just hearing about it was enough to make them happy for many days. The commander of the garrison in the third port was rather foolish, or perhaps simply wanted to save Ramon Du Fei and gain some credit for himself. As a result, he was naturally taught a lesson by Du Ji, and more than 100 naval soldiers were incorporated into the Sea Fish pirate group, becoming new joyful dancers. They were Antonio's subordinates. So, Du Ji gained another enemy, Vice Admiral Antonio, and the number of his pirate ships also increased to 5. Apart from the name of the Smiling Angel, the 2 merchant ships of the Du Fei family and the 2 warships of the Navy were given new names: Clownfish 1, Clownfish 2, Happy Fish 1, and Happy Fish 2. Du Ji's Sea Fish pirate group might not be the fastest expanding one, but it definitely had the most enemies and was the fastest growing in terms of fame. After all, it was rare for a pirate group to be simultaneously wanted by the Du Fei family, General Macaro, and Lieutenant General Antonio. Paul Walls got his wish. He now had his own bounty. The combined reward from the 2 powers reached 80,000 gold coins, ranking him 17th among all the pirates with bounties. He was given strange titles like Mad Dancer and Happy Clown. Many bounty hunters were itching to move, eyeing this large bounty. Many pirates also set their sights on the Sea Fish pirate group, planning to kill Paul, claim the bounty, and boost their own fame. For most pirates, switching between being a pirate and a bounty hunter was a matter of convenience. Of course, there were also many more players in the simulation field. They also targeted this suddenly emerged Paul Walls. Many people were secretly analyzing his keywords, investigating his whereabouts, planning to strike at any time, take his ranking, and claim his bounty. With so many abnormal behaviors, they didn't believe that this one had made some deal with Selma. This excuse was too childish. The ranking in the simulation field not only depended on personal attribute improvement but also on the impact the holder of the keywords had on the world. Having attached himself to 3 major powers, the rapidly rising Du Ji further soared in the simulation field's ranking, leaping from over 100 to the 15th position. Now was a time of turmoil. The matter of the trident of the sea god was causing a stir. Countless pirates were rushing to Herd Island. Lieutenant General Antonio sent the navy to blockade the island's routes. The Black Hand had slaughtered 7 small pirate groups. Roland Swan proposed a pirate conference to discuss the trident of the sea god and the redivision of the sea territories, and so on. Especially within the pirate group, rumors about Selma's heavy reward for a child, General Macaro's bayonet plan, and Mahamedu's dagger operation were secretly circulating. The entire pirate world was in turmoil, unprecedentedly lively. Paul Wall's personal ability to make a name for himself in this storm was beyond doubt. There was also a rumor that Paul had traded for a powerful force from Selma, which led to his current achievements. No one dared to underestimate him. After all, throughout history, the legends created by Selma were countless. At this time, Du Ji and his pirate group arrived at the Herd Island Sea area before Antonio's blockade, hiding in a secluded harbor for a brief rest. The vast sea had this advantage: as long as you wanted to hide, you could always find a suitable place. After a few days of integration, the Sea Fish pirate group had become united, adapting to their new team. Especially the original members of the Giant Bird and Ramon Du Fei, they were completely devoted to Paul, determined to make him the pirate king. The former was for self-preservation, the latter was to drag more people into the water, dancing in a pink dress at the bow of the ship. The only one who still held a grudge against Paul was probably the newly joined Royal Navy soldiers. According to the rules, they would act as happy dancers in the upcoming battles, attracting others' attention. Chapter 141, Head Island. After settling the crew, Du Ji, Vito, and Barry drove a small boat to Head Island. Du Ji's reputation is well known now, and bringing the fleet to the island is tantamount to provoking everyone. It's not worth exposing themselves for the sake of investigating a clue. Head Island is located in the center of the East Sea and the South Sea. One side is governed by the King of the East Sea, Mahamadu, and the other side belongs to the King of the South Sea, Safra Kanil. There is no navy stationed on the island. Because of its special geographical location, it is actually a lawless zone. There is a bustling black market trade on the island, supplying resources to pirates who cannot enter the port, and also responsible for selling their loot. Here, you can find wanted criminals by the navy, pirates who have lost their ships, mercenaries who make quick money, and so on. There are even many bounty hunters mixed in, waiting for the opportunity to hunt, taking the heads and running away. But they will be chased by all the pirates. Those who can escape are the elites. It's a mix of good and bad, chaotic yet orderly. In the 4 major seas, there are many islands like this. Head Island is one of the most famous among them. With the people who have been living here for a long time, plus the floating population, there are at least 100,000 people. Walking on Head Island, looking at the staggering drunks, the classic pirates with their arms cut off and replaced with iron hooks, and the prostitutes wearing revealing clothes soliciting customers on the roadside. Listening to the unabashed foul language in his ears. At this moment, Du Ji finally felt that he had truly arrived in this world. The people in the port were too kind before. Captain, when should I go find Mahamadu? I feel that my role in the team is no longer significant. Vito walked beside Du Ji, looking somewhat worried. Antonio's navy has blocked the route to Head Island, with more than 100 warships densely packed together, aiming their cannons at the island. A pirate ship with a skull flag approached Antonio to provoke, but accidentally entered the range of the cannons. Thousands of cannons roared. That pirate ship was torn to pieces in an instant, and the sailors who fell into the water struggled helplessly on the sea surface, eventually being swallowed by the sea, causing a great shock to Vito. He finally began to doubt the low-key approach he had always adhered to. Just as Du Ji said, under such bombardment, if he fell into the water, he might not even be able to swim to the shore. Du Ji's character is unconventional, making enemies everywhere. He even came up with the idea of having the crew dance on the deck to please the enemy. Such attention-grabbing actions would make him the primary target. For the sake of his own safety, Vito started consciously trying to improve his favorability among the pirates, but the effect was minimal. Paul was not influenced by his flattery, and he couldn't rely on Du Ji's pirate group to have a significant impact on the world. All the orders came from Du Ji, and if he wanted to greatly improve his attributes, he had to leave him. Flattery is simply not suitable for chaos. These days, Vito's ranking has hardly increased, always fluctuating around 400 to 700, close to the bottom. Didn't I say it? After the Head Island battle, Du Ji looked at Vito and smiled. I firmly believe that our pirate group will gain fame in this battle. At that time, we just need to perform a small act of pretending to be in distress, and you will quickly gain Mahamadu's trust. Vito looked at Du Ji, wanting to say something but hesitated. Vito, don't worry. One day, you will make a name for yourself. Du Ji smiled, and, you also need to know the main storyline, right? If you blindly join Mahamadu, all the information will come from the people around you, and you will become blind and deaf, making many wrong decisions. Well, what you said makes sense. Vito pondered for a moment and nodded. Heia's residence is called the Witch's Hut, a 200-year-old house where the witch makes a living by fortune-telling and selling drugs. With Vito's presence, it was easy to find out her whereabouts. The skill of flattery is hard to guard against. Du Ji walked on the street, observing his surroundings vigilantly. Now, his 5 senses can probably cover a distance of 50 meters. The witch Heia is the main clue to the sea god's scepter, and it will definitely attract a large number of candidates to gather or wait here. Be cautious and avoid major mistakes. At this time, there are still more than 500 candidates left in the simulation field, and they are being eliminated at a rate of 1 or 2 per day. Obviously, without the group of people led by Du Ji who would overturn the table, the candidates in the simulation field are all following the normal rules of the game. After these days of adaptation, the elites have already found their place in this world. The only ones who have truly exposed themselves should be Du Ji and the suspected killing black magic hand. A group of survivors. Du Ji suspected that if the simulation field did not force the announcement of the top 10 after a month, these guys could survive in the simulation field forever. Having gotten used to the fast-paced elimination matches, Du Ji was not very accustomed to this slow-paced competition. If Chi Yuan Star continues to train candidates in their understanding of keywords in this way, they deserve to lose on the alien star battlefield. Too passive. From the dock to He cabin, Du Ji didn't notice anything unusual along the way. Outside the witch's cabin, more than a dozen pirates were lining up. They glared at each other, ignoring everyone else, and no one dared to cut in line here. Occasionally, pirates would rush out of the witch's cabin and leave in a hurry. After leaving the witch's cabin by 50 meters, they would start running, meeting up with their crew outside, and then the group would leave in a hurry. Occasionally, a lone pirate would come out of the witch's cabin, and someone would follow him, trailing behind him as he left. Captain, the witch needs quiet when she's divining, so everyone who comes to seek divination or medicine from her must remain quiet. If there's any noise during the queue, they'll be driven away by the witch, or even suffer her revenge. Looking at the witch's cabin from a distance, Bari lowered his voice and explained to Du Ji, the area 50 meters outside the witch's cabin is known as the Cursed Land, and no one dares to make trouble here. How does she usually retaliate? Du Ji asked. Having entered the simulation field twice, he was encountering this kind of mysterious power for the first time and was inevitably curious. It's said to be curses of chaos and madness. Bari shook his head. I've only heard about it, never seen it firsthand. But in this world, no one wants to provoke a witch. Their magic is unpredictable. Captain, he will only perform a divination for the same person once a month, and she charges a high fee. Captain, you should cherish this opportunity. Since these people are all here to inquire about the trident of the sea god, why not just find someone to bring up the question and tell others? Even if one question sells for 1 gold coin, it won't take long to make a profit. Du Ji said. Captain, you'd better not have such an idea. The witch makes a living by divination. If she finds out who broke the rules, she will retaliate furiously. Bari was startled, suddenly remembering that his family master was someone who dared to tease even Selma, and quickly reminded him, Captain, the witch is proficient in divination. It's said that everyone who has had a divination with her will form a spiritual connection, and she can easily find out who leaked the divination content. Are there any other precautions? Du Ji's gaze wandered among the queuing pirates, but he didn't find any who were disguised as candidates. It had to be said, these guys' disguises were really good. It's just that Du Ji's current attributes weren't high enough, and his skills weren't suited for fighting. If it were the old days, he would have started a massacre here long ago. After all, Witch Hia was simply the best bait. Maybe someone had already done this. After all, Du Ji was currently ranked 15th, and there were still 14 people ahead of him. I don't think so. Bari shook his head. I've never dealt with a witch before, I heard all this from others. Okay, I got it. Du Ji gave a noncommittal smile, then called to Vito, let's go line up. Am I going to? Bari asked. Since she only performs a divination for the same person once a month, we should certainly cherish this opportunity. Du Ji looked back at him. Bari, don't you want to know your future destiny? Compared to exploring the mysterious power of this world, Du Ji didn't mind spending more money. After all, it wasn't his money, and he couldn't take it with him anyway. Moreover, Vito had the skill of flattery, so he should be able to get more detailed information, and maybe even control the witch. Chapter 142, 3 Questions of the Soul. The pirates in front of Du Ji entered the witch's hut one by one, and came out one by one. No one made a sound. Du Ji's hearing range of 50 meters also failed, and he couldn't hear any sound from the witch's hut at all. It has to be said. The witch's magic is really something. After about an hour, it was finally Du Ji's turn. He gave Vito a signal and stepped into the witch's hut. The hut was gloomy, illuminated only by a few candles, and there was a faint smell of herbs in the air. Sir, entering requires payment of 10 gold coins. A veiled maid stopped Du Ji, holding a tray with both hands, and spoke without any emotion in her voice, divination requires 40 gold coins. Damn it! 50 gold coins. 10 pirates in an hour, that's 500 gold coins. Working 10 hours a day is 5,000 gold coins, which is almost the same as his bounty amount in 16 days. This is simply robbing money. No wonder she would retaliate against anyone who leaked her divination content. If it were him, he would retaliate too. Being a witch is much easier to make money than being a pirate. And there is no risk. You know, he only robbed over 1,000 gold coins from the Duffy family's 2 merchant ships. Du Ji counted out 50 gold coins and placed them in the maid's tray. The maid stepped back and cleared the way. Du Ji walked along the corridor and entered. The corridor was about 10 meters long, with a small wall lamp lit every meter. The light of the wall lamp flickered, allowing people to vaguely see some strange patterns on the walls. Exaggerated faces, hexagrams, octograms, constellations in the sky, and so on, looked mysterious and strange, arousing people's imagination. It's the same routine as a temple. First spread various legends, and then create an atmosphere through the environment, so that everyone who enters here will unconsciously develop awe for the witch. The herbs in the air should also have a hypnotic effect. Du Ji analyzed the witch's methods and walked all the way to the end of the corridor, pushed open the small door at the end of the corridor, and bent down to enter. Inside the room, the light was still dim. A woman in a black robe sat behind the table, with a crystal ball in front of her. Behind her, there were shelves full of potions, and the bottles containing the potions had no names, only some strange symbols. The dim light did not affect Du Ji's vision. He could clearly see the layout of the witch's room, and even saw the eyes revealed under the witch's black robe. Those were a pair of young eyes. Although only the eye sockets and eyebrows were revealed, Du Ji speculated that she was definitely not over 25 years old. Could this person be a fraud? Du Ji couldn't help but have this thought. Seeing Du Ji, the witch didn't even lift her head. She pointed to the chair in front of her. Sit. Du Ji sat down. The witch finally looked up at him, then lowered her head again and continued to ask, "Young man, what do you want to divine?" Her voice was hoarse and old. Concealing her voice, she didn't even dare to reveal her original voice. Even if this witch has magic power, her level is probably limited. Before, Du Ji came to witness the mysterious power of this world. But now, he changed his mind, I have heard an ancient proverb, which says that it is better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. This means that it is better to teach someone the skills of fishing than to give him a fish. So, I want to learn divination skills from you. Once I learn divination, I will be able to know anything I want to know. The witch was stunned, never expecting Du Ji to ask such a question. After a moment, she raised her head again and glanced at Du Ji. "Young man, don't daydream. Only witches can learn magic. You are a man and will never comprehend magic. Please quickly ask your question and don't waste my time." "All right." Du Ji smiled slightly disappointedly and said, "Then please divine where I come from. Don't you want to ask about the trident of the sea god?" The witch was stunned again. "The trident of the sea god has no meaning to me. I want to know where I come from." Du Ji smiled, "Please divine for me." "Okay, young man, I hope you won't regret it." The witch's hands floated above the crystal ball, and she began to mutter to herself. Du Ji watched her with a smile, quietly waiting for the answer. Nan Yalong once said that once the body possession is completed, the soul will merge with the body, and even the most sophisticated means cannot detect it. So, this question is the most suitable for exploring what kind of witchcraft it is. The crystal ball emitted a faint white light. Du Ji smiled and waited quietly. After a moment, crack! A crisp sound. The white light on the crystal ball disappeared instantly, and then it was covered with cracks. The witch groaned, her body shook violently, and she looked at Du Ji incredulously. "Who are you?" "Damn! This question is too powerful. In the future, in other worlds, it can be used as a trump card for assassination." Du Ji shook his head with a smile, expressing his worries, "That's exactly why I'm here. These days, I've been lost in confusion, with 3 questions constantly troubling me. Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? I have a feeling that if I can solve these 3 questions, I can unravel the ultimate mystery of life, and I will become a god in this world." He was stunned into silence. In that moment, she suddenly felt an urge to pick up the shattered crystal ball in front of her and smash it on the head of the man across from her. "You're a pirate. Instead of thinking about stealing money, you're thinking about becoming a god. Even Witchia can't divine it." Du Ji continued to smile encouragingly. "Why not try another crystal ball? I was planning to come to you next month to divine who I am." He had choked on her words, pointing to the door. "Please leave, you're not welcome here." "But I've paid." Du Ji didn't move. "Witch, are you really not going to try again? What if you can divine it?" I'll refund your money, please leave. The witch took a deep breath. Should I come back in a month? Du Ji asked. No, never come back, you're not welcome here. He said hysterically. At this moment, she even forgot to disguise her voice, which became much clearer. Witch, your voice. Du Ji widened his eyes in surprise. He stood up angrily, grabbed Hia by the collar, and pulled her up from her seat. You fraud, you're not witch Hia, who are you? The witch struggled desperately. Let go of me, you bastard, I curse you. Her voice abruptly stopped. Because Du Ji had torn off her veil. Underneath the veil was a young, and angrily distorted face, with a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. As expected, when she tried to divine Du Ji's origin, she was backfired by the magic. At this moment, Hia looked at Du Ji in astonishment, forgetting to speak. Everyone knows that Hia is over 100 years old, you're indeed a fraud, I'm going to drag you out and let everyone know that the witch is a money-swindling fraud. Du Ji laughed, poor ignorant pirates, they've been fooled by you for so long. Ignorant young man, do you know the price of humiliating a witch? The young witch finally came to her senses. She sneered, you've been cursed by me, without my antidote, you won't even be able to leave this room, you'll bleed to death from your 7 orifices. Beg for mercy now, and perhaps I can spare your life. Are you referring to the powder that popped out of your fingernails as the curse? Du Ji shook his head with a smile, blinked a few times, and said, I regret to inform you that I didn't inhale them. And, do you know how much pleasure it would bring me to subdue a renowned witch? Even in the dim light, Du Ji's senses were not affected. In the first simulation field, his opponents were Tong Shihong and Zhong Gui. The movements of those martial artists were much faster than a witch who didn't exercise regularly. Hiya's every little movement couldn't escape Du Ji's eyes. The witch's pupils contracted. My curse is against the soul. I find it hard to believe that you can cast a soul-targeting curse without even chanting a spell. If you were that capable, you wouldn't be hiding in this hut swindling food and drink. Du Ji shook his head with a smile. I didn't swindle food and drink. The witch said angrily, my divinations are all true. Where is the trident of the sea god? Du Ji asked. The witch remained silent. Tell me, or else, I'll take you out and expose your true face to everyone. Du Ji smiled, his hand on her neck gently tightened. Of course, it could also be your corpse, letting everyone know the true face of the witch. Golden compass, find the golden compass, under its guidance, you can find the trident of the sea god. Hia looked at Du Ji's calm face and said dejectedly. Where is the golden compass? Du Ji asked. Collect the 7 pieces of the Destiny Sea map, and you can find the golden compass. Hiya's fate was in Du Ji's hands, and he showed no signs of poisoning after such a long time. She finally gave up. Du Ji was speechless. He looked at Hiya resentfully. Are you playing Matryoshka with me? Is this what you tell those who come to you for divination? Chapter 143, Break free from the shackles of fate. No, I will tell them to follow the crystal ball to find the map of destiny. Once they find the map, they can come back to me and I will tell them the next steps, Hiya said, feeling the tightening grip around her neck. Then, will you get double the money? Du Ji asked. There are a total of 7 maps. Hiya looked at Du Ji and forced a smile. Each map costs 50 gold coins, so 7 maps would be 350 gold coins. Once I have all 7 maps, I can ask the golden compass. And then, I can pretend to look at the crystal ball and fleece the same person 8 times. Give her the keywords of trade, and she can grow. She is too cunning. Compared to her, the pirates are innocent lambs. The most important thing is that as long as she knows the location of one map, she can easily deceive others without even needing divination. Because when the person who has the map comes to her for divination, they will expose the map in their possession. She just needs to tell the second person who has the map. Damn it! She can also be a witch. Wait. Who do you work for? Du Ji paused. Who is your employer? To find the golden compass, they need the map of destiny. Hiya's actions were clearly a way to mobilize all the pirates to help her find the map of destiny. In the end, no matter who collects all the maps of destiny, they will come back to her. Mahamadu. Hiya hesitated for a moment and said a name. A tear fell from the corner of her eye. Mahamadu killed my mother. My mother was the real witch Hiya. He forced me to find the map of destiny for him. If I don't obey his orders, he will kill me. And all the gold coins I earn through divination will be taken by him. Sir, I am just a poor witch burdened with hatred. If you kill me or reveal my identity, Mahamadu will hunt you down. Let me go, and we can cooperate. How can we cooperate? Du Ji asked with interest. You have an unpredictable fate, powerful abilities, and keen observation skills. I believe only you can defeat Mahamadu and avenge my mother. He saw a glimmer of hope and lowered her voice. If you are willing to avenge me, I can give you a share after collecting all the maps of destiny. Didn't Mahamadu assign someone to monitor you while searching for the golden compass? Du Ji asked with a smile. Affected by the person who extends a hand in friendship, he forced a smile. The maid outside who collects the money is Mahamadu's person. She has strong combat skills and hands over the money to Mahamadu's people every evening. You care more about money than your mother, don't you? Du Ji let go of his grip on her neck and sneered. The face of the young witch turned red. So, do you agree to cooperate with me? What is your name? Du Ji asked. Marcia He, the witch said. I am Paul Walls from the Sea Fish Pirate Group. Du Ji looked at her and introduced himself. If you want to cooperate with me, you must join my pirate group. So, you are the clown Paul, the witch widened her eyes and looked at Paul in disbelief. Yes, that's me, Du Ji nodded. Marcia He, do you still want to join my pirate group now that you know my name? Of course. If you were just an unknown person, I would inform Mahamadu as soon as you leave. The young witch smiled and took out a vial of potion from the cupboard behind her. She drank it in one gulp. Then, she wiped off the bloodstains from her mouth, and her pale face visibly regained its color. But if you are Paul, we can indeed cooperate. However, I cannot leave the witch's hut. If I leave here, Mahamadu's people will hunt me down. Every person who joins my pirate group must have a fish name as a suffix to their name. It is our symbol and our belief. Du Ji looked at the witch and said with a smile. The witch didn't find any problem with this condition and looked at Du Ji. She readily agreed, I can add a butterfly fish suffix to my name. Marcia He a butterfly fish, Du Ji looked at the witch and confirmed. Yes, Marcia He a butterfly fish. I think the butterfly fish is beautiful and suits my temperament, the witch smiled. Paul, I have to say, you are a very special person. Everyone else is concerned about the sea god's scepter, but only after you arrived here, you care about some trivial matters. Are there many special people like me these days? People who come to ask you some special questions? Du Ji asked. Only you, everyone else comes to ask about information on the sea god's scepter. The witch sat back behind the table, covered her head with a black robe, and changed her voice to a hoarse tone. Paul, I need to remind you that you have 3 minutes left. If you have any plans, it's best to say them quickly. After 3 minutes, if you haven't left, the maid outside will come in to check. As she spoke, she placed the shattered crystal ball under the table and replaced it with a new one. Du Ji looked at the witch, remained silent for a moment, then suddenly grabbed her arm, exerted force, and pulled her out from behind the table. Marcia, come with me. Ah! Caught off guard, he exclaimed, what are you trying to do? Butterfly fish, why should I wait for you to collect all the maps of destiny before coming back to find you? That's too passive. Du Ji smiled and lightly touched her face, whispering, I don't know if Mahamadu or Safra Khanil is behind you. It takes too much time to figure out the truth. But as long as I take you away, those who are searching for the maps of destiny will naturally come to us. Butterfly fish, I like to hold my own destiny. Are you crazy? If you take me away, not only will Mahamadu chase after you, but other pirates who want to find the sea god's scepter will also hunt you down, he exclaimed. If I had known you were such a madman, I wouldn't have agreed to cooperate with you. It's already late, from now on, you'd better not speak. Du Ji laughed heartily, swiftly untied Hiya's belt, bound her arms behind her back, and from a nearby rack, he pulled down a brand new black robe, wrapping up the crystal ball on the table and all the bottles and jars in the cupboard. Then, ignoring the witch's struggle, Du Ji hoisted her onto his shoulder, slipped out the small door, and strode away. One event led to another. You never know who's telling the truth and who's lying. Everyone is like a riddle. Du Ji was really getting a bit fed up. After all, when pirates go to war, it's a blaze of gunfire. It's not easy for him to find joy on the battlefield. If he continues, his ranking will only fall further behind, but kidnapping the key character of the storyline, the witch Hiei, is a different story. Those examinees and pirates who haven't gotten any clues yet, if they want to know the clues, they must come to him, then, he will have more room to maneuver. Moreover, with the witch Hiei in hand, others would hesitate to attack him. When the time comes, he ties the witch on the deck, who dares to fire at his ship. Regardless of his ranking, he will go to the alien star battlefield, so let the low profile go to hell. Between the map of destiny and the golden compass, the main storyline is too complicated, he would be sent running around the world. There's not a soul on the sea, how is he supposed to grow his attributes, by constantly fishing in the sea? If he continues to be led by the nose by fate, he would suffocate. Worst comes to worst, he'll end this simulation field, let Nan Yalong open another one for him. What he really needs is the skill reward of the second keyword, not some damn role-playing experience of the keyword. Chapter 144, Happy Big Money. Let go of me, you lunatic, the witch struggled desperately, but after Du Ji slapped her on the buttocks, she suddenly became obedient. The little maid at the end of the corridor, who collected money, was stunned when she saw the witch being carried out. Then, she quickly drew the dagger from her waist and stabbed towards Du Ji's chest. Her movements were swift and decisive. Her skills were much higher than those of the pirates who fought at sea all year round, almost reaching the level of Feng Yunjia. There was no room to dodge in the narrow space. Du Ji smiled slightly and kicked towards her lower abdomen. The maid flew back. The dagger that was aimed at Du Ji's chest changed direction and stabbed his leg instead. Du Ji retracted his leg and smiled at her again. The maid's tense face unconsciously revealed a smile. Her tense mind relaxed for a moment, and Du Ji kicked again. The maid, who didn't have time to lift her dagger, could only reach out and try to hold down Du Ji's foot. But with Du Ji's enhanced attributes and strength far surpassing ordinary people, his kick pushed her hand away and directly kicked her in the lower abdomen, sending her flying. Crash! The wooden door was shattered, and the maid fell onto the street, clutching her lower abdomen and writhing in pain. What's going on? The pirates waiting in line outside the door were all stunned. Barry covered his forehead in pain. It's over. He knew his master was never calm, but this was too much. They had only been inside for a few minutes, and they had already thrown out the maid. And when Barry saw Du Ji carrying the witch out right after, he felt despair. Vito looked at Du Ji, his forehead throbbing. What does it mean for you to go in for divination and carry the witch out? No. If you cause trouble and make me wait in line, what's the point? Indeed. With chaos, he would never have a chance to grow. You never know what he will do next. Paul and Chaos were a perfect match. They were afraid that the world would not be in chaos. Vito, catch! Du Ji threw the package in his hand to Vito. Vito reflexively caught it, and Du Ji turned around and rushed back into the witch's hut, picking up the bag of gold coins that the maid had been carrying. Then, he turned around and rushed out again. Barry, Vito, let's go. After saying that, he took the lead in carrying the witch and rushed out. Barry and Vito reluctantly drew their own scimitars and followed behind Du Ji, responsible for covering him. At this moment, the pirates waiting outside the witch's hut finally reacted. Damn it, he took the witch. Stop him. What the hell, where did this lunatic come from? Isn't he afraid of the witch's curse? Kill him, save the witch. This guy clearly wants to monopolize the sea god's scepter. And in the time it took for all this to happen, Du Ji and the others had already run dozens of meters. The pirates drew their weapons and chased after them, shouting and calling their companions ahead. On Hid Island, bounty hunters often cut off heads and run away. Being chased by a group of people was a common occurrence, and the people on the street were used to it. When encountering such a situation, they would voluntarily move to the side and clear the way. The street vendors would skillfully drag their goods back and join the crowd to enjoy the unique joy that belonged to them. However, they had never seen anyone carrying a person and running like this before. What's going on? The witch was kidnapped? Du Ji's guess was correct. There were indeed many candidates on Hid Island, and 3 of them were waiting outside the witch's hut. One was a pirate with a hook on his hand, lying in a corner sunbathing. Another was a beggar begging on the street, and the other was a pastry vendor selling gingerbread by the roadside. They had ambushed and attacked many candidates outside the witch's hut. The fact that the witch was kidnapped completely caught the 3 of them off guard. The pirate with the hook on his hand immediately jumped up from the ground and joined the chase. The pastry vendor overturned his gingerbread stall, and the beggar no longer pretended to be pitiful. He surpassed everyone at a faster speed than the pirates. What a joke! They were waiting to get rich with the witch. If the witch was kidnapped, how could they play? Beggar, I've been suspicious of you for a long time. What's your keyword? The pirate with the hook tightly chased after the beggar and shouted loudly. Fuck off, old hook! You stole my last bounty. I haven't settled the score with you yet. The beggar refused to show weakness. Your keyword must be laziness. You're running so fast, aren't you afraid of losing attributes? I'll kill you, and my attributes will naturally increase. The pirate with the hook yawned, and the beggar's footsteps immediately slowed down, as if he could fall asleep on the street at any moment. The hook on the pirate's arm ruthlessly hooked towards the beggar's throat, but his hook was 3 inches away from the beggar's throat. A flash of light passed, and the beggar's head flew into the sky. Blood sprayed onto the pirate's face. The pirate suddenly shivered, and the iron hook quickly stood up, blocking in front of his throat. Ding! It perfectly blocked a scimitar. It's you. The pirate with the hook saw the gingerbread vendor looking at him from the side, and his eyes narrowed. Old hook, you react quickly, but you're no match for me. Surrender and give me your attributes. The gingerbread vendor laughed heartily, withdrew his curved blade, and slashed towards his side again. He managed to create afterimages with his curved blade. Clang! 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 Old hook, the pirate, parried left and right, quickly falling into a disadvantage. He yawned again, but the gingerbread vendor was unaffected. A bystander vendor, bored with the spectacle, plunged his head into the ground and fell asleep. Old hook was taken aback. Your skill. The gingerbread vendor chuckled, no one can hurt me. Now your life is mine. Don't kill me, we can cooperate. The one who kidnapped the witch must be a candidate. I can help you control him, Old Hook quickly said. No, not cooperate, I assist you. My skill can force people to sleep. You're growing too slowly, the gingerbread vendor disdainfully shook his head, lowering his voice, and, in this simulation field, I don't need any assistance, especially not from a garbage keyword like you. Hey! Old Hook defiantly yawned again. A pirate running past them suddenly plunged to the ground, instantly falling into a deep sleep. However, after being stepped on, he jumped up with a howl, completely bewildered. Is your skill reflection? Old Hook used all his strength to shout. He knew he was destined to be eliminated, but he wouldn't let his killer get away easily. As long as there were still hidden candidates in the crowd, they would be prepared when they encountered him again. Puff! The gingerbread vendor's curved blade severed Old Hook's iron hook, slid across his throat, and took his life. Feeling his attributes increase, he spat contemptuously at the corpse on the ground, muttering, "Idiot, you guessed wrong. My skill, in this simulation field, is invincible." Having said that, he no longer paid attention to the 2 contestants he had eliminated. The gingerbread vendor turned around and continued to chase Du Ji. Judging from Du Ji's speed, his ranking must not be low. Killing him would certainly lead to a qualitative leap in his own attributes. Rescuing the witch could also earn him her gratitude. Then, allying with the witch and secretly attacking other contestants would be even easier. Captain, think of something, there are more and more people. Barry cleaved a pirate who suddenly jumped out from the side, shouting anxiously. They were surrounded by pursuers on all sides, and Paul was still stubbornly holding onto the witch, completely unable to save him. He felt he wouldn't survive the day. Big brother, you're so handsome. Big brother, your beard is so sexy. Big brother, you're so manly. Vito was flattering, complimenting everyone he met, then slashing them with his blade. His killing efficiency was much higher than Barry's. But facing the swarm of pirates, he also felt a bit overwhelmed. Flattery is not a combat skill. Even if they ran to the ship now, this crowd would still follow and kill them. Why put themselves in danger? Whoosh! A handful of gold coins were scattered into the crowd by Du Ji. Brothers, it's payday. Genuine gold coins, whoever picks them up, they're yours. Boom! The crowd watching the excitement immediately became chaotic, everyone scrambling to pick up the gold coins on the ground. After picking them up, they would happily stuff them into their pockets. Nothing makes people happier than finding money. Moreover, This kind-hearted pirate was not like other bounty hunters, who stingily scattered silver coins and even threw them at the pursuers. Who's the fool? Would anyone rush towards the pirate's blades for a few silver coins? This fool must be a newbie, scattering gold coins by the roadside. Picking them up was no burden at all, and there was no need to worry about being hurt by those fierce pirates. It's a waste not to pick them up. Nowadays, there aren't many newbies like this. The witch, who had been carried by Doji all the way, endured her dizziness and muttered, "That's my money." Barry was also shocked by Doji's spendthrift move, angrily shouting, "Paul, you should be throwing the money behind us, what's the point of throwing it into the crowd?" Chapter 145, Muddy Water Fishing. It's all the same. Doji laughed heartily and continued to scatter gold coins into the crowd. The source of happiness, when you spread happiness, there will always be someone who falls into misfortune. From the center of Hid Island to the pier, it was a long downhill slope. The street was only a little over 4 meters wide, and a portion of it was occupied by small vendors on both sides. There was only about 2 meters of space for people to walk. Dozens of pirates closely followed behind Doji, running fast. After Doji scattered the coins. Suddenly, the pirate at the front tripped over a protruding stone and fell to the ground on the street. Under inertia, the people behind couldn't stop and ended up stepping on him, causing them to fall one after another. In no time, more than 20 pirates rolled into a group, blocking the road tightly. Most of the pirates chasing Doji were holding machetes. When they fell, in order to maintain balance, they swung their machetes randomly, inevitably hitting the people nearby. Ouch! Ouch! The screams merged into one. At this moment, the gingerbread vendor happened to catch up. He was extremely fast and had quick reflexes. When he saw the pirates rolling into a group, he was already prepared to dodge. He planned out the best route, rushing past the vendor from the side, then stepping on a stone pillar next to him and jumping 3 meters forward, just enough to leap over this group of foolish pirates. But plans couldn't keep up with changes. In the instant he turned around, a piece of melon peel happened to appear under his feet. His left foot accidentally stepped on the melon peel, causing him to slip and lose his balance. He involuntarily plunged into the group of pirates. Then, his head was firmly held between the legs of an unknown pirate, and the strong smell made him dizzy. He was on the verge of suffocation. The gingerbread vendor had high attributes and great strength. He exerted force to lift the person on his back, just as he was about to catch his breath. Suddenly, with a bang, a tremendous force hit his back, causing him to plunge back down. Just as he opened his mouth and was about to breathe fresh air, before he could close it, he bit into something soft and squishy. The taste of blood and fishy smell immediately rushed into his mouth. And the person he bit let out a hysterical scream. Bang! 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 One after another, more and more pirates crashed into the group of pirates. The gingerbread vendor couldn't get up. In the crowded and confined space, he couldn't spit out what was in his mouth. He had already realized what he had bitten. Feeling nauseous and helpless, unable to bite harder, he was so frustrated that he wanted to cry. This guy definitely didn't take a bath after having fun. This is really damn unbelievable. He, the 24th ranked expert, how did he end up tripping over a piece of melon peel? So unlucky. If he had known, he would have taken a detour to the pier to intercept them. He saw Doji scattering the gold coins, but he never thought it was a skill effect. He only thought it was a group of greedy people fighting over the coins, which caused this accident. The gingerbread vendor finally managed to break free from the group of rolling pirates. He had lost sight of Doji and the others, and when he caught up to the pier, he only saw a small sailboat swiftly leaving, with pirates rushing to get on board in a hurry. Some pirate ships were raising their anchors, while others didn't understand what was happening and remained indifferent to the chaos on the pier. Damn it, you're all dead. The gingerbread vendor looked at Doji who was getting farther away, spat to the side with anger, and couldn't help but retch. He took a few quick steps and boarded a pirate ship that had just raised its anchor. Looking at the group of pirates who were on high alert, he said with a stern face, "I am Mahometu's man. If we catch up to the boat ahead, I will give you plenty of gold coins. And also, get me a bottle of rum, I need to rinse my mouth." Go to hell with your Mahometu. You're clearly just a gingerbread seller outside the witch's hut. Boys, kill him and let's go after the witch. One pirate sneered, took out a flintlock pistol, and fired at the gingerbread vendor. Bang! Sparks flew. The next second, the pirate let out a scream, dropping the pistol from his hand, and then a sword slashed his throat, blood gushing out. He weakly covered his throat and knelt down on the ground. Now, I am the captain of this ship. If anyone thinks otherwise, their fate will be the same as his. The gingerbread vendor held a blood-stained scimitar, coldly scanning the crowd, then fixed his gaze on the sailor who was raising the sail. Continue your work. You, bring me a bottle of rum, right away, immediately. The small sailboat raised its sail, untied the ropes tied to the pier, and could quickly set sail. The large ship, on the other hand, needed to anchor and raise the sail, among other troublesome preparations. Therefore, Du Ji quickly escaped from the pursuers. And luckily, none of them were harmed. By Poseidon, I can't believe we actually made it out. Barry adjusted the mast, looking at the pursuers on the shore cursing at them, his face filled with relief. He was panting heavily. Paul, you're insane. I can't believe you actually kidnapped the witch from Herd Island, and you succeeded. That's just crazy. It's precisely because no one would think we'd dare to do it, that's why we succeeded, Du Ji said with a triumphant smile. He had just been throwing around coins, reaping a large amount of happiness value, and his attributes had risen significantly. It was only later that he ran out of gold coins. Otherwise, he would have definitely scattered a large amount of gold coins on Herd Island, not for anything else, but to bring happiness to the world. All attributes bought with money are worth it. And he was familiar with this operation. After all, in the last simulation field, all his attributes were bought. Indeed, everything can be traded, and trade is the most powerful keyword. The increase in attribute values was a minor matter. What made Du Ji happy was that the previously quiet fishing skill had finally awakened its second ability. Muddy water fishing. In the water you muddy, you are definitely the biggest beneficiary. This skill probably derived from him muddying the waters of Herd Island, taking away the most crucial big fish inside, and even touching this fish. But no matter what, this was a skill tailor-made for him by the heavens. It meant that as long as he kept stirring things up, he would reap more, like the map of destiny, the golden compass, the trident of Poseidon. If he couldn't get these things, how could he be considered the biggest beneficiary? The most crucial point. The advanced skill of the second keyword can be brought into reality. This kind of passive skill that doesn't require attributes is the most beneficial. After leaving, if he muddies the waters of the outside world, wouldn't he also become the biggest beneficiary in the real world? Tisk tisk. Reality once again proved. Only by holding the initiative in your own hands can you gain the greatest benefits. To hell with low-key, to hell with patience, those are choices made by cowards, the strong will lead the world. Bastard, do you know what you've done? You'll be hunted down by everyone. My head must have been kicked by a donkey to agree to cooperate with a fool like you. Martha Hoyle leaned over the side of the boat and dry-heaved a few times, finally regaining her senses. She cursed at Du Ji, you stupid bastard, you even threw all my gold coins away. I'm definitely going to be killed. No, everyone will be killed by you. Du Ji cut the rope that bound her with a curved knife and casually threw it into the sea, laughing. Martha, don't be so angry, you should know, even if you didn't agree to cooperate with me, I would still have kidnapped you. You idiot, you not only cut off my belt, but also threw it into the sea. The witch watched her belt slowly sinking on the surface of the sea, her eyes wide open, her face full of despair. That belt contained the most powerful healing potion, and enough poison to kill 300 people. Chapter 146, Witch Paul. The Wicked Little Witch. It's a good thing her belt was thrown away. Otherwise, letting her create panic on his own ship as a witch, all the joy he created was offset by her. Luck is indeed on his side. When did he ever use poison to kill someone? It's always been a heartless approach. Du Ji looked at Hia and comforted her perfunctorily, no need. Masha, the purpose of our pirate group is to spread joy. With our protection, no one can harm you. You should learn to be a happy witch. The witch glared at Du Ji with a pout. Witches need to be feared, not happy. You took me away, and all the fear accumulated by my grandmother and mother over the past 100 years has been destroyed by you. I can already foresee the future days, and no one will be afraid of me anymore. Family heritage? Du Ji curiously looked at Masha Hia and asked, who has the guts to marry your grandmother? And who married your mother? The witch choked, roaring, "It's none of your business how we came to be. That's not the point at all, okay? Aren't you afraid of giving birth to boys?" Du Ji asked again. The witch's momentum suddenly wilted, and she said hesitantly, "We have a potion. Whenever a witch wants to pass on her legacy, she will choose the most powerful man in the world. Afterwards, they will have no memory of it." Several consecutive questions dispelled Barry's fear of the witch. He looked at the witch strangely and suddenly felt that she was deliberately captured by his captain. Immortality, immense power. There should be no man in the world stronger than Paul. Du Ji smirked provocatively, "So, you still need to be happy, don't you?" Masha was about to go crazy. At this moment, she really wanted to pry open Du Ji's head and see what was inside. While everyone else was concerned about the trident, he was asking himself where he came from. When there were pursuers behind them, he was concerned about whether she was happy or not. "Who cares if I need to be happy? Even if I wanted to be happy, I wouldn't find you." The witch glared at Du Ji, her chest heaving violently. She swore that if she had to pick the man she hated the most in the world, it would definitely be the guy in front of her. Du Ji signaled to Vito with his eyes. Vito sighed inwardly. Sure enough. He had already been treated as an underling, not a partner at all. But he wouldn't disobey Du Ji's orders. He put on a smile and said, "Sister Hie, your voice is really nice, and you must be very beautiful too." "Of course." The witch immediately became smug. "Little brother, your voice is much nicer than that stinky guy's. Sister is gentle and beautiful. I wonder what the keywords are." Vito smiled and continued to ask. "What keywords?" The witch looked at Vito strangely. "Nothing." Vito smiled and brushed it off. "I just didn't expect the legendary witch Hia to be so young and beautiful. The real witch Hia is my mother, and she was killed by Mahamadu." Masha gritted her teeth and looked at Du Ji, saying, "If I had my mother's powerful magic, I wouldn't have been abducted by this jerk." Vito glanced at Du Ji and asked, "Smart and beautiful witch sister, can you tell me the clue to the trident?" "To find the trident, you need to find the golden compass first." Under the influence of her skills, the witch spoke without reservation, repeating what she had said to Du Ji. Is what she said true? Du Ji was stunned. Was the witch so sincere? No. She should really hate Mahamadu, but she didn't have the ability to seek revenge, so when the crystal ball shattered, she chose herself. "Masha, do witches really have magic?" Du Ji changed the subject and asked. "Of course." Masha nodded. "If there's no magic, why would the crystal ball shatter when I was divining your fate? Then help me calculate whether I have a chance of getting the trident." Du Ji smiled, grabbed a large package from the cabin, took out the crystal ball inside, and handed it to the little witch. The little witch was stunned, looking at Du Ji with lingering fear, and dared not take the crystal ball. Vito glanced at Du Ji and said ingratiatingly, "Sister Masha, your skills are unparalleled. Can you help us with a divination?" "Okay, just once." "He's so weird, I suspect I'll die divining his fate." Masha grumbled as she took the crystal ball and looked at the three people on the ship. "But I want to tell you, the result of the divination only represents the future at this moment, and any fate can be changed. There are hundreds of variables in the entire simulation field. It would be strange if fate could be fixed." Du Ji nodded and gestured, "Let's begin." "We're ready." The witch placed the crystal ball on her lap, her hands suspended above it, and closed her eyes, murmuring an incantation. A moment later, a milky white light reappeared on the crystal ball. Then, the witch opened her eyes. And the milky white light disappeared in a flash. This time, the crystal ball did not shatter, but the witch visibly looked much more exhausted. She looked at Du Ji and frowned tightly. "What did you see in the divination?" Du Ji asked. "It's very strange, only a vague image." The witch looked strangely at Du Ji's hand, hesitated for a moment, two different hands holding the trident of the sea god. "One hand should be yours, and the other hand's fingers are slender and pale, looking like a woman's hand." "Is that all?" Du Ji was stunned. "That's how divination works." "It's already quite clear, isn't it?" Marcia said irritably. "The subject of the divination is you, proving that one day in the future, you are likely to touch the trident of the sea god. I don't know who that woman is. Maybe you are handing the trident to Janice, or maybe you are fighting with another woman for the trident. This is just a future image, anything could happen." Vito's eyes widened. Is this a joke? Paul is jumping like this? Can he really survive to compete for the trident? But why is it a woman's hand? Shouldn't it be him and Paul fighting for the trident? Barry's eyes lit up, his confidence suddenly boosted. Paul actually has a chance to compete for the trident of the sea god. That alone is enough. Marcia, you are beautiful and kind, the most powerful witch in the world. Can you help me calculate? Vito asked unwillingly. No, my magic is not enough. Marcia looked at Vito. I can only predict the future 3 times in one day, and before, when I predicted Paul's fate, I was backlashed by magic once, and I still haven't recovered. At $W%. Duji looked at Marcia, took the crystal ball from her leg, copied his movements, and repeated the strange incantation she had said. He had the courage and curiosity to try everything. It's impossible. You only heard it once. How could you remember such a cumbersome incantation? Marcia widened her eyes. Twice. Duji muttered in his heart. When you divined for me in the witch's hut, you also chanted this sentence. So, it turns out that you witches rely on a string of incantations to dominate the world. You can't remember it after hearing it twice, and it's a waste of my high spiritual power. The next moment, something even more incredible happened. The crystal ball emitted a white light. By the sea god, how can you have magic? Marcia's eyes widened even more. Isn't it said that only witches can use crystal balls? Paul, are you a woman? Vito rolled his eyes. If he's not a woman, what else could he be? But the crystal ball is also strange. Could it be that it discerns souls? In that case, can he use it too? Her soul is also female. The white light flashed and disappeared. What did you see in the divination? Marcia asked eagerly. The second. Duji looked at Vito and said 2 words. What second? Marcia asked. What did you see? I didn't see anything. I just saw a glowing light bulb. It's possible that there was a real image when the white light came on, but I couldn't see it. Duji muttered in his heart, looking at Vito, who was full of surprise, and said confidently, You are the second, standing behind me. Really? Vito looked pleasantly surprised. He didn't believe in himself, but he believed in a crystal ball? Duji looked at Vito and muttered in his heart, earnestly fabricating a future for him. In the image I saw, you raised 2 fingers and your mouth seemed to say 2, so I feel like it means the second place. In recent days, Vito's thoughts had been fluctuating, and Duji felt it necessary to make their relationship more intimate. The friendliness between a slave and a master was clearly not enough. Since he was willing to believe in fate, then he would use the future to solidify their relationship. It's just a matter of making up a couple of lies. Too simple. Oh my God, you really saw an image. Marcia covered her mouth in astonishment. Paul, can you predict my future? Witches cannot predict their own fate. Can you predict mine and see what my future holds? Duji looked at the witch, smiled and nodded, of course. Then, he chanted the incantation again. The crystal ball emitted a white light once again. When the white light went out, Marcia asked eagerly, How is it? What does my future look like? Is my revenge successful? Gold coins. I only saw countless gold coins. You were lying on top of the gold coins, with a greedy and indulgent look on your face. Duji looked at the witch, his expression somewhat strange. The witch's eyes gradually began to glow. Suddenly, she burst into laughter, laughing triumphantly and uncontrollably, her body trembling with laughter. This is the future I want. Paul, our cooperation is indeed correct. I knew that the person who could make the crystal ball shatter must be an extraordinary person. A bunch of fools. They were actually controlled by a glowing ball. Duji snorted disdainfully and then looked at Barry, who was piloting the boat, and asked, Barry, do you need me to predict for you? Is it possible? Barry asked excitedly, didn't Marcia say that a person can only divine 3 times a day? That's because her magical power is insufficient, Duji said with disdain as he glanced at Marcia. Besides, haven't I divined less than 3 times yet? Chapter 147, Share the Witch. Under Duji's divination, Barry's fate was naturally good. The scene was of him standing at the bow of the ship, with a vast pirate ship behind him, clearly the configuration of the deputy to the pirate king. So, Barry's dissatisfaction with Du Ji disappeared without a trace, leaving only a firm determination in his heart. He would fight for a better future. After Du Ji finished the divination, Vito also took the crystal ball and, imitating Du Ji, solemnly recited the spell. As a result, nothing happened. Seeing Vito's disappointment, Marcia smiled and took the crystal ball from his leg. Vito, although you recited the spell correctly, you obviously don't have any magic power. Paul was an exception. Not everyone can be a witch. No. Not everyone can be a witch. He just mispronounced 3 syllables and made 4 wrong movements. Not correcting Vito, the little witch clearly had her own thoughts. She had to ensure her own status and couldn't allow everyone to use her crystal ball for divination. Du Ji didn't expose Marcia Hoya, because he also didn't want other candidates to be able to use the crystal ball for divination. It wouldn't be fun if his secret was revealed. On the shore, 7 or 8 pirate ships started up and followed the small sailboat from a distance. The chaos on Herd Island grew, with more people rushing down from the city and hastily boarding the pirate ships. The news of the witch being kidnapped finally spread. The pirates didn't hesitate to go to Herd Island despite the naval blockade, all for the clue to the trident of the sea god. If the witch was kidnapped, what was the point of the risks they were taking? For the trident of the sea god, they had to pursue the person who kidnapped the witch. Paul, your future is destined to be entangled with the trident of the sea god. Do you have a way to solve the current dilemma? Marshall looked back at the approaching pirate group. The Navy has blocked the route to Herd Island, and we can't break out. And you kidnapped me, offended Mahamadu and Safla, as well as countless pirates. It's impossible to return to Herd Island for supplies. He also offended the Duffy family and Rear Admiral Macaro, with a bounty of 80,000 gold coins on his head, not to mention Selma, whom you don't know about. Barry silently added in his mind. By kidnapping the witch and cutting off the main line, he was making enemies of more than 500 candidates in the simulation field. Those people were the biggest unstable factor. Vito sighed. If the future divination was true, he couldn't imagine how Du Ji would break the situation and snatch the trident of the sea god from everyone's hands. Putting himself in Du Ji's position, even if he had the keyword for chaos, he would be helpless. What dilemma? Du Ji looked at the 3 of them strangely. Aren't most of the pirates looking for the trident of the sea god? We just need to tell them the clues. As for Mahamadu and Safla, they are not on the same page. And Rear Admiral Antonio is blocking the route. How come, when we got here, everyone seems to want to unite against me? What are you thinking? You want to make the clues to find the trident of the sea god public? Marcia was stunned. Of course, do we have to personally search for the map of fate? Mahamadu, and your efficiency is too slow. Du Ji laughed. We are the angels of spreading joy, of course we can't keep the secret of the treasure to ourselves. Mahamadu will definitely hate you for this, Marcia sighed. If he wants to come and kill me, he has to break through Antonio's defense line. Du Ji said. By that time, I may have grown to a point where he can't compete with me. After awakening the second skill of slacking off, Du Ji had no scruples. Since he had stirred up the waters, he would become the biggest beneficiary. So, he wanted to stir up the waters even more. 40 minutes later, Du Ji returned to his fleet. The people on the ship, including Vane, saw the 7 or 8 pirate ships closely following Du Ji's group, and they were all dumbfounded and had a headache. How much time had passed since then? Their boss had been causing trouble at an increasingly faster pace ever since he gained immortality. They didn't have time to ask Du Ji what had happened. All the sailors immediately got to work, loading ammunition, adjusting the masts, and preparing to break out of the encirclement before the pirate ships surrounded them. The sailors had rich combat experience. They only had 5 ships, and once they were blocked by 8 ships, there would be no hope of survival once the subsequent ships from Herd Island arrived. Focus on the battle, Du Ji pulled the witch to the front of the naval dance troupe. Do you see her outfit? Find a few people with a similar figure to hers, dress them in black robes, cover their faces, and have them stand on the deck of each ship. The rest of the people can continue to dance. The dance troupe doesn't need to worry about the battle. Vane and the others were all stunned. Witch, the parrot Wendy flapped its wings, pointing out Marcia's identity. The faces of everyone on the ship changed. They looked at the black-robed, masked Marcia and finally realized what their captain had done. This was just asking for death to come faster. What are you afraid of? Hoya the witch has already divined my fate. I am the future pirate king. Du Ji looked around at everyone and said loudly, do you know what this means? It means that no matter how great the danger we face, we will turn the tables and survive. The soul of the sea god will protect us, because only I can hand over the trident of the sea god to his daughter. Hoya, tell them, is it true? I clearly said that the future can be changed. Hoya sighed deeply, but at this moment, she also knew that she couldn't dampen the morale of the sailors. She had to step forward and raise the crystal ball in her hand, hoarsely saying, Paul is right. The fate of the future shows that he did indeed pick up the trident of the sea god. A commotion arose. Everyone's gaze toward Du Ji changed. The witch had 100 years of fame, so what she said naturally couldn't be wrong. If Paul only possessed immortality, it wouldn't be worth risking their lives for his recklessness, but the title of Pirate King was different. It signified overwhelming power and endless wealth. Of course. There was also the feather of the sea god. Then all their sacrifices would be worthwhile. So, let's get moving. Du Ji raised his arm and shouted, once I become the Pirate King, you will be the invincible Sea Fish Legion. All pirates who see you will keep their distance, and all navies who encounter you will flee in terror. Let us strive together for a bright and glorious future. Pirate King, Pirate King. Pirate King. Pirate King. Pirate King. The crowd echoed the chant. The morale of the Sea Fish pirate crew was higher than ever before. At this moment, even the pink pirate flag seemed to be filled with a murderous aura. The Royal Navy's dance troupe, dressed in pink skirts, no longer felt that dancing was a disgrace. Vito was dumbfounded. Paul Walls, he's the one who abducted the witch? This madman, does he think his bounty isn't high enough? On a pirate ship, a pirate captain peered through his telescope at the pink smiling skull flag, confirming Du Ji's identity, and frowned. The first mate put down his telescope and scoffed, Captain, I don't think he's worried about his bounty being too low. Rumor has it, he made a deal with Selma and gained tremendous power. Everyone who deals with Selma ends up losing their mind. What's his keyword? Madness. On another pirate ship, the chef came out of the kitchen, gazing at Du Ji's flag and muttered under his breath, Damn Captain, I wasn't ready to face him yet. How could he let me confront this lunatic so soon? I hope he doesn't go on a killing spree. I don't care what your keyword is, today you must die. The gingerbread vendor stood at the bow, his eyes filled with malice. He took a big swig of rum, gulped a few times, then spat it into the sea. Chasing all this way, he had gone through 5 bottles of rum and still felt a taste in his mouth, which was the greatest humiliation since he entered the simulation field. He directed all his misfortunes at Du Ji. If it weren't for him abducting the witch, how could he have ended up chewing on such disgusting stuff? Although furious, the gingerbread vendor remained rational. After all, he wasn't clear on what Du Ji's keyword was. Paul had caused such a commotion by abducting the witch, his ranking might even be ahead of his own. It was best to be cautious. Taking another swig of rum and spitting it out, the gingerbread vendor turned back to the captain standing behind him and ordered, Captain, once we're within range, fire the cannons. Target the 4 ships on the side first, then take out the dance troupe on his deck. Should we really open fire? The captain hesitated, putting down his telescope and said hesitantly, he's placed several witches on each ship, and there's a line written on the sails, Abandon hatred, we can share the witch. Chapter 148, The Inexplicable War. Show weakness? Show goodwill? Or is it a trap? The gingerbread vendor put down the telescope in his hand and fell into contemplation. He subconsciously took a sip of rum, this time he didn't spit it out, but swallowed it in one gulp. Then, he suddenly realized what he had done, his face changed, he retched a few times, and fiercely threw the bottle of wine in his hand into the sea. The simulation field has only been open for more than 10 days, and everyone is carefully hiding themselves and seeking development. It has to be said. Paul's behavior is really abnormal, even more so than the Black Hand. The keyword for the Black Hand may be something like slaughter, it has to be high profile, but every time he appears, he leaves no survivors, and no one has seen his appearance until now, which can be considered another kind of low-key. But this Paul is really arrogant. Even if his keyword is chaos, there is no need to make himself such an obvious target in less than half a month. Unless his keyword is not chaos? If it's not chaos, what else could it be? Lore? Or simply high profile? Shine? Or is it the center? Is it considered setting a trap for himself? If Paul forces his way through, all their pirate ships will definitely surround him, no one will let him leave with the witch, but Paul boldly declares the slogan of sharing the witch, then no one will attack. The trident staff entangles the ambitions of every pirate, and no one is willing to give up this opportunity to reach the top in one step. Damn guy, disrupting all his plans. Captain, are we still firing? The gingerbread vendor's fierce and conflicted face made the original captain feel panicked. He couldn't help but interrupt the other's contemplation as he watched him remain silent. Even without the trident staff, no one is willing to kill a witch. After all, there are too many rumors about witches, and in all the legends, those who kill witches have never had a good ending. The gingerbread vendor came to his senses. What's your name? AK Bar, the captain said cautiously. From now on, you are the captain of this ship, and I am your second mate on board. The gingerbread vendor looked at him and instructed, remember, my name is Sheldon Geese, and there has never been a bloodshed on the ship, understand? Later, I will board with you to see what Paul is up to, mainly for you to negotiate with Paul. Do we really have to board the ship? The captain swallowed his saliva. There is no trust between pirates. What if they open fire? Are you stupid? The gingerbread vendor glared at him. They have 5 ships, we have 8 ships, and there are still ships coming from Hid Island. If they open fire on us, it means declaring war on everyone. Can he fight so many people? Even if he breaks through the encirclement, Antonio's ship is still outside blocking him. Where can he run to? I think him taking the Witch Hoya away is already a declaration of war on everyone, Captain AK said awkwardly. Paul has not killed anyone in these days, whether it's the Duffy family or the Royal Navy, he's just forcing them to dance, so you don't have to worry about your safety. The gingerbread vendor's mouth curled with a hint of sarcasm. Besides, don't you want to get information about the trident staff? I have powerful strength and combat skills, and you have your own pirate ship. If we work together, we can definitely take out the other competitors and send you to the throne of the Pirate King. Don't you want to become the Pirate King? The captain asked, puzzled. No, I just want to eliminate the heretics in this world. The gingerbread vendor snorted impatiently. In short, don't reveal my identity. Paul won't kill, but I will. Paul kidnapped the witch, but as the gingerbread vendor said, he also forced himself into a desperate situation. After all, Antonio had blocked the entire route, and his ships couldn't break through at all. So, everyone thought that Paul's proposed sharing the witch method was a sign of weakness. If they had known earlier, why bother? Wouldn't it be better to let the witch stay on Hid Island? Sure enough, everyone who had dealt with Selma had a screw loose in their heads. When the captain of the Snow Dragon, AK Bar, approached first, the rest of the pirate ships followed without hesitation. Although they were not familiar with each other, they were on the same front when it came to the witch. It was an unspoken rule among pirates, just like when they encountered the navy, they would band together. This time, Antonio blocked the Hid Island route, not taking the pirates seriously. This wasn't the first time he had done this. In a few days, Mahamatu and Safra would attack Antonio from behind, and when that happened, as long as the trapped pirates cooperated and rushed out, this blockade would come to nothing in the end. At most, a few unlucky ones would die. If Antonio had such great ability, the Royal Navy would have already cleared out the pirates. The Royal Navy in pink dresses danced on the bow, and the deck of the Smiling Angel was filled with rum because someone had to be responsible for sailing. So, in Duji's pirate group, there were no more than 80 people who could take action, and after they were dispersed onto 5 ships, the number was even fewer. This was clearly a sign of weakness. The foolish clown Paul really had no intention of taking action. Seeing this scene, the captains of the pirate ships were itching to make a move, and some even had the idea of taking the witch back. Because of the pink dance troupe on the deck. So, whether it was Duji's pirate group or the 7 or 8 pirate ships that came over, there would always be some inexplicable situations. For example, the first mate aboard the Clownfish No. 1 inexplicably stepped on his own left foot with his right, tumbling onto the deck in a clumsy sprawl, his curved knife flying from his grasp and severing the sail-raising rope. The just hoisted sail fell back down with a whoosh, forcing several of the ready-to-fight sailors to divert their attention to repairing the sail. There were also sailors who, while carrying rum out of the cabin, tripped over the ropes on the deck and plunged headfirst into the sea. In short, Duji's pirate ship was riddled with problems. prompting raucous laughter from the pirates besieging them, who now took their opponents even less seriously. Could sailors who couldn't even walk steadily really fight? It must be said, Du Ji's clownfish and the happy, truly brought joy to everyone. It had been a long time since they had encountered such a foolish pirate crew on the sea, from the captain to the sailors, all of them inept. Laughter filled the air, unrestrained. But joy often comes hand in hand with tragedy. The gunner on the Latin saw the scene of the sailor falling into the water from the clownfish and couldn't help but double over with laughter. As he turned to mock the incompetence of the sea fish pirates with his companion, the lit torch in his hand accidentally ignited the fuse on the cannon. By the time his companion noticed, it was too late. Boom! A cannonball burst forth. To everyone's disbelief, it whistled through the air and landed on the deck of the Snow Dragon. At that moment, the gingerbread vendor had just changed into pirate clothes and was coming out of the cabin. And then, a cannonball came hurtling straight at him, but his reflexes were sharp, and he leaped to the side. Coincidentally, the captain had also just tumbled onto the deck. Amidst the explosion, the gingerbread vendor's head once again buried itself in the captain's ample backside, the familiar scent overwhelming him. When he finally got back up, his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Again? For the second time. What on earth was happening? Was Paul's derivative skill to kiss other people's backsides? He hadn't seen where the cannonball had come from and thought it was Paul who had broken the rules and attacked them. The gingerbread vendor's eyes instantly turned bloodshot with rage. Unforgivable, utterly unforgivable. It's the Latin. The Latin attacked us, return fire, return fire. Being hit by a cannonball was the most severe provocation among pirates, tantamount to declaring war. After all, a pirate ship is the home where every pirate makes their stand. The Latin had not attacked Paul but had struck first at them. Unforgivable. The crew of the Snow Dragon was beside themselves with rage. Pirates are hot-tempered by nature, and to swallow an insult is not in their character. The gunners on the Snow Dragon immediately turned their cannons and lit the fuses. Boom! Boom! 2 cannonballs roared out, heading straight for the Latin. Then, one cannonball hit the Latin, while the other sailed over it and broke the mast of the Herman. And so, the Herman, unwilling to suffer losses for no reason, began to retaliate. Before long, the 8 pirate ships pursuing Du Ji were embroiled in chaos. Beside Du Ji, Martha, who had been incessantly complaining that he shouldn't have raised the Share the Witch slogan, couldn't help but widen her eyes. By Poseidon, what's happened? Could it be that the gods of the sea are truly watching over you? Vito swallowed hard. Chaos. It was definitely chaos. Only chaos could plunge the enemy into indescribable agony. Chapter 149, He must be confused. Although the witch proved to everyone that Paul would pick up the trident of the sea god in the future, Du Ji's plan still made the members of the sea fish pirate group feel unreliable. After all, there were too many people on the other side. Pirates wouldn't reason with you. Once a conflict arose, half of the fighting power would be reduced, and they would be waiting for a one-sided slaughter. Paul might become the pirate king, but they also had to live until that time. Therefore, every member of the sea fish pirate group was uneasy, so the first mate would absent-mindedly trip over himself, the sailor would be tripped by the cable and fall into the sea. But the next scene shocked everyone. The enemies on the other side inexplicably started fighting each other. Turning danger into safety, turning bad luck into good, may the sea god bless. Du Ji's words came back to their minds. It came true. Everything came true. At this moment, the crew of the sea fish pirate group were all in a frenzy of joy, and their confidence in Paul reached its peak. Damn! Is the source of happiness so powerful? Only Du Ji understood the reason behind it. He swallowed his saliva lightly. This skill should belong to the power of the mysterious side. If this continues, he just needs to keep creating happiness, and more water will be stirred up, and then, stirring up muddy waters will bring him the greatest profit. The snowball is about to roll again. It's chaos. Paul's keyword is chaos. Only chaos can cause such an effect. Before, there were examinees who awakened the advanced skill of winning in chaos and easily became the first in the simulation field. It was exactly the same as the current situation. After the gingerbread vendor figured out the cause of the matter, he quickly determined Du Ji's keyword and squinted his eyes, not allowing Paul to continue to grow stronger. Otherwise, when his momentum expands to the entire world, no one will be able to suppress him. Usually, once chaos appears, it will be attacked by everyone. So, examinees who later possessed chaos would secretly stir up trouble everywhere, and it was rare to see someone as brave as Paul. Spreading happiness? Your disguise is too bad. The gingerbread vendor shook his head. Examinees with the keyword of chaos mostly did not produce attack and defense advanced skills. In a one-on-one situation, the possibility of him winning was very high. By causing such a big incident, Paul's ranking should have entered the top 10. After harvesting him, relying on his advanced skills, he should be stable in the simulation field. The chef on another ship also judged Du Ji's skill for the first time and came to the same conclusion as the gingerbread vendor. However, he hesitated for a moment and chose to endure. It had to be said. His keyword was really not suitable for combat, and confronting chaos head-on would undoubtedly lead to death. The chef's eyes roamed around the other pirate ships, secretly thinking that if someone could take action and have a mutually destructive fight with chaos, it would be good. The happy dance troupe stopped dancing the moment the gunfire started. Everyone was watching with joy. After all, they were out of the range of the gunfire and didn't have to worry about being hit by a cannonball. At this point, a hapless pirate ship had already been sunk, and the crew struggled on the surface of the sea with broken planks. The gunfire between the remaining pirate ships became sparse. The ammunition on the pirate ships was limited, and after this round of firing, the reserve ammunition was almost depleted. Because they were too close, almost every ship was damaged, the masts of 2 ships were broken, losing power and floating on the sea. This is unbelievable. Akbar covered his butt, looking at his snow dragon, which had been hit by several large holes, and cursed angrily, "Are these bastards cursed by the witch? Get closer." The gingerbread vendor rinsed his mouth with a new bottle of rum, looking at Akbar's butt with a dark expression, and ordered coldly, "Get closer." Akbar widened his eyes and complained, "We were strong before and could negotiate with Paul, but now we're almost sunk. Going over there is just asking for death. It's precisely because the snow dragon is about to sink that you should go over." The gingerbread vendor glanced at him, "Paul's ship is still intact. Don't you want to change to a new ship?" Akbar hesitated. He looked at the intact Paul pirate group not far away and swallowed his saliva. Won't they open fire? If they were going to open fire, that was the best opportunity just now. If he didn't open fire, he never will. The gingerbread vendor said, "Captain Akbar, don't hesitate. Get closer. You use negotiation to hold off Paul, and I'll find a way to assassinate him." Assassinate? Akbar was stunned. There are at least 30 people on his ship. Paul Voss is dead, and the others are not worth worrying about. I can take care of them for you. The gingerbread vendor took a sip of rum, spat it out, and said coldly, "Captain Akbar, this is your only chance to turn things around. If you don't seize it, I'll kill you and find another captain." The gingerbread vendor's voice was very cold, and the killing intent was obvious. Akbar couldn't help but shudder when he remembered the bite on his butt. "Can't I go instead?" Under Akbar's command, the snow dragon was restarted and sailed towards the sea fish pirate group. The other 4 pirate ships that could still move followed suit. They didn't know how this inexplicable battle had started. But now, the only way to make up for their losses was the stupid sea fish pirate group on the other side. That's right. Paul had 5 warships but didn't take the opportunity to escape or attack them while they were fighting. A captain like this could already be equated with stupidity. "Captain, do we fight these fools?" Barry drew the scimitar in his hand, eager to try. Their cannonballs are already depleted. At this time, we only need a few shots to sink them. And then what? Deplete our ammunition and end up being used as live targets by the pirate ships chasing us from Herd Island. Du Ji glanced back at him and said, "Barry, put away those violent thoughts. A great pirate king must learn to forgive his enemies, influence his opponents, and ultimately, make them willingly become our companions. That way, our pirate crew will grow stronger and eventually dominate the entire sea. Besides, I want them to help us find the Destiny Sea chart." "Oh." Barry responded indifferently and stepped aside. He now followed Paul's orders unconditionally, and although they were a combat unit, Paul had taken care of all the previous battles. If Paul didn't want to fight, then a fight really couldn't happen. "Right, take a ship later and rescue those guys who fell into the sea." Du Ji looked back at Barry and instructed, "They've lost their own ship, and our sea fish pirate crew can become their new home. We need to make every pirate feel the warmth of home with us." Barry nodded, turned around, and was about to leave to carry out Du Ji's orders. Wait a bit longer before you go, Du Ji stopped him, let them soak in the sea for a while longer. Only after tasting enough cold will they be truly grateful for the warmth. Otherwise, you'll find that you've rescued a bunch of ingrates who might bite you at any moment. In a short while, the Snow Dragon, the Latin, the Herman, the Archer, and the Seal, 5 battered pirate ships, stopped opposite the Sea Fish pirate crew. Having fought a baffling battle, smiles were long gone from their faces. Even if Paul continued to have his Royal Navy dance troupe perform in pink skirts, they couldn't cheer up. Today was just plain unlucky. Agbal stood at the bow, looking at Paul across the way, and shouted, "Captain Paul, do your words still hold? Can we share the witch's clues?" "Of course." Du Ji smiled, his gaze sweeping over the members on the several pirate ships, finally resting on Agbal's face. "I'm a person who loves making friends. If you're not planning to rob my ship, I'm very happy to share all the information about the trident of the sea god. After all, I've become the new witch's successor, and I plan to spend the rest of my life studying witchcraft to become the greatest witch, so I'm no longer interested in the trident of the sea god." Under her cloak, Martha Hoya rolled her eyes. "What a load of nonsense! If you're not interested in the trident of the sea god, I'll swallow the crystal ball whole." Chapter 150, For Love. "Witch? First, you have to be a woman." Everyone who gathered around was stunned by Du Ji's shameless remarks. People who have traded with Selma will become abnormal, it's true. Of course. It's also possible that Paul traded that thing to Selma. You know, the sea is big, and there are all kinds of fish. Akbar choked for a moment, with undisguised mockery in his eyes. "Then I wish Captain Paul a long way on the witch's path. Thank you for the blessing of Captain Snow Dragon." Du Ji smiled, "But, before boarding the ship, can I know your name?" "Akbar Bar." Akbar Bar said. Du Ji looked at the Latin number next to him. "Deep Latin." The captain of the Latin ship is a bearded man of indeterminate age. "Walter Herman." Herman's captain also reported his name. "Rando Ackle." Ackle's captain looked gloomy, feeling that he had suffered unjustly, and transferred all his anger to Paul. "Levan Lees." The captain of the seal ship looked about the same age as Paul, and his loss was the smallest among all the ships. Therefore, he was not very angry. His eyes have been wandering over the witches of the Snow Angel, and finally settled on the witch next to Du Ji. "Please, captains, board the ship." Du Ji smiled, looked around, and said, "In order to avoid causing more unpleasantness, I suggest that each captain bring only one deputy. I swear in the name of the sea god that I will never take action against you." He shrugged and smiled. "After all, if I wanted to kill you, I could have just fired a shot earlier, couldn't I?" The innocent smile infected Akbar Bar opposite him, and he smiled too. "Of course, I believe in Captain Paul's character. Barry, take a ship to rescue those crew members who fell into the water." Du Ji smiled again and turned to Barry to give orders. "Pirates should help each other. If they are not rescued, those poor guys will probably drown." Barry was stunned. "Didn't you say to let them soak for a while?" Barry commanded the Clownfish No. 1 to rescue people. Several captains and their deputies climbed aboard Du Ji's smiling angel number. Du Ji's eyes passed over them one by one, showing no signs of anything unusual. A few people had a faint smell of alcohol on them, but at sea, the crew drinking to numb themselves was nothing out of the ordinary. "Thank you all for your trust in me." Du Ji elegantly bowed to the captains, smiling at everyone. "You chased me here because of the witch. But there is no hatred between us, is there? Captain Paul, I now want to know the clue to the sea god's scepter." "Rando, the captain of the Ackle, said in a muffled voice, 'Let the real witch come out, we want to meet her.'" "Captain Rando, I am the witch. I can tell you the clue directly." Du Ji smiled at him. "To find the sea god's scepter, you must first gather 7 pieces of the Fate Sea map. After piecing together a complete Fate Sea map, you can find the golden compass according to the instructions on the map. Then, the golden compass will guide you to find the sea god's scepter." All the captains were stunned. The henchman of the gingerbread vendor instinctively grasped the hilt of his scimitar, and he almost couldn't help but make a move against Paul. He could foresee that the news of this group of people leaving with the sea god's scepter would immediately cause a great chaos among all the pirates. He had to take Paul down before the chaos erupted. He wanted to enjoy Paul's attributes alone. Causing such a big chaos, Paul's ranking must be very high. So, he only had one chance. He had to make a move when Paul was most relaxed. Is what you said true? Is it that simple? Two voices sounded at the same time, one was Rando from the Ackle, and the other was Captain Levan Lees of the Seal. Of course it's true. Du Ge smiled and looked at the two, and you have the most accurate information. Those who have consulted the witch before only got the clue to find the Fate Sea map. They don't even know what to do next after getting the Fate Sea map. If you don't believe it, you can go find them to verify. Why did you tell us such important information directly? Akbar Bar asked. Very simple, because the person behind the witch, Mahamadu, has a piece of the Fate Sea map. And he wants to use the power of all the pirates to help him find the other 6 pieces of the Fate Sea map. Du Ge smiled and continued, so, no matter what, you can't gather all 7 pieces of the Fate Sea map. Unless everyone can unite and defeat Mahamadu. Otherwise, even if you find the Fate Sea map, you will only be making a wedding dress for Mahamadu, because you are not possible opponents of the King of the East Sea. The reason I kidnapped the witch is because I don't want everyone to be busy and do nothing. Levan, I have always said that pirates like us cannot win in this game. The first mate behind Levan Lees frowned, let's quit this game. I don't believe what you said. Levan Lees looked at Du Ge and questioned. What he said is true. Martha, Hoya suddenly lifted the cloak on her head, took off her veil, stretched out her right hand, and a 6-pointed star floated in her palm. She looked at everyone with a face of hatred and said loudly, Mahamadu killed my mother, forced me to do things for him, he is my enemy, and I don't want to work for him, so I voluntarily let Captain Paul take me away. I don't want Mahamadu to get the sea god's scepter, so I will never be able to take revenge. The 6-pointed star proved the witch's identity, and the captain's suspicions disappeared instantly. Including Akbar Bar, everyone fell into contemplation. They had to make a choice between the elusive sea god's scepter and Mahamadu. So, you told us the clue, but you don't really want us to find the Fate Sea map. Herman's captain frowned and asked, can I understand that you want to monopolize the witch and then get the Fate Sea map, Captain? Walter, don't forget, I am also a witch. I simply sympathize with Martha's plight, which is why I decided to lend a hand, Du Ge said with a smile, his gentle gaze turning towards Martha as he spoke softly. Stop talking such nonsense. No man can ever become a witch, Levan Lis stood up, angrily declaring, unless you let me take the witch away, I will never believe it. Captain Levan, taking the witch away means you'll be making enemies with everyone. Can you bear the consequences? Du Ge turned to Levan Lis, gesturing towards the multitude of pirate ships that had surrounded them, and said, if you have the courage to face the consequences and ensure the witch's safety, I might let you take Martha away. He's a coward, I won't leave with him, Martha Hoya said disdainfully, sparing him no courtesy with a contemptuous glance. Levan Lis's face turned red in an instant, and he sheepishly lowered his head, not daring to make such a promise. With a single sentence, the idea of snatching the witch from everyone's mind was dispelled. Paul was right, at this moment, whoever took the witch would become the enemy of all. So, you will tell everyone the clue, right? The captain of the Herman asked. Yes, the opportunity is fair for everyone, as is life. I would rather trade the clue to the trident of the sea god for Martha's freedom and safety, Du Ge said, looking at Martha Hoya with affection, then turned his head to Walter, Captain Walter, actually, there's another reason why I'm telling you this. What is it? Walter asked. Not everyone has the chance to wield the trident of the sea god, but everyone has the chance to obtain wealth, Du Ge said with a smile, once again surveying the crowd, indeed, you are no match for Mahamadu. But some are, like the King of the South Sea, Saffron, and the King of the North Sea, Roland Swan. Their power is enough to contend with Mahamadu. Moreover, they will not allow Mahamadu to obtain the trident of the sea god and disrupt the balance of the 4 seas. I think they would be more than willing to spend a large sum of money to purchase a piece of the sea fate map. Hiss. The captains, who had already fallen into despair, took a sharp breath, suddenly understanding Paul's intention. He wanted to use this opportunity to provoke a war among the kings of the 4 seas, to avenge his girlfriend, Martha Hoya. That's right. No one believed that Paul had become a witch. From the way he looked at Martha, it was clear that the fool had fallen in love. Only love could drive a person mad, make him disregard all consequences, and snatch Martha from Mahamedu's control, even if it meant making enemies of the entire world. But it must be said, Paul's proposal was indeed brilliant. Gold coins are a pirate's life. Since the trident of the sea god was out of their reach, why not trade the sea fate map for a fortune they could never spend?